Good evening. This is the Borough of Oradell Planning Board meeting for May 6, 2025. It is 7:30. Notice of this meeting was published in the official newspaper, prominently posted in Borough Hall, and filed with the clerk's office in accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meeting Act. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Forte?
Here.
Mr. Snyder?
Here.
Mr. Dressel?
Here.
Mr. Kang?
Here.
Councilman Carnaval?
Here.
Mayor Koth?
Here.
Mr. Scalcione?
Here.
Mr. Darian?
Here.
Mr. Flagg?
Here. I'll take a motion for approval of the planning board minutes from the April 1st, 2025 meeting.
Want to do Pledge of Allegiance?
I'm sorry?
Pledge of Allegiance?
Oh, I missed that. Mayor, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, now I'll take a motion to approve the minutes from the April 1st, 2025 meeting.
So moved.
Second by Mr. Scalzo.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, before we start, I just want to ask everybody to put their phones on mute. And we'll start with committee reports, subdivision, site drainage, and soil moving. Mr. Carnaval.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're continuing our application calendar number -162-25, 420 Kinderkamack Road. I would ask the applicants to come up to the table.
Thank you, Mr. Carnaval. Is this on?
It is, but that one on the table is also on, so you don't have to really use the mic unless you're by the
Well, I'm
drawings.
addicted to the mic, you know. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Carmine Alampi. I'll be here representing the applicant in lieu of my son, who ordered me to be here on time. So this, I understand, is a following meeting where we presented architectural and engineering testimony, but you're doing the review of what? The subdivision? You called us for subdivision committee report, or?
Well, that's the whole
We're just
committee.
starting.
No,
Oh.
we're
So we're starting the whole application? I have Mr. Costa, our engineer, who was sworn in at the last meeting. We have, of course, Mr. Vergona. I think we're going to start with Mr. Costa. There were some changes to the site plan, the parking dimensions, the positioning of a generator and such. So I think you should...
Just ask, so we understand timing, what other professionals you're going to have?
We have four
tonight?
witnesses. Engineering and planning should be very brief. We're not going to regurgitate all the testimony. Then we have our parking and traffic consultant, Bill Page, and then our planning consultant.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
So with that, Chairman, I'm going to call Mr. Costa, who will review. I believe that we sent a letter along with the revisions to the plan, so it would be easier for the board to follow the changes. There was a April 23rd, 2025 letter from Mr. Costa. I hope that it was distributed to the board members.
And for the record, Mr. Costa was sworn at the last meeting and remains under oath.
Thank you, Brian. So with that, Rob, why don't you bring us through your engineering site plan and detail what changes you've made? Do you want to go through your, do you want your letter? Will it help you to?
No, it's fine. Just again, good evening to the board, the mayor, the public. Good evening. For the record, Robert Louis Costa, C-O-S-T-A. At the last meeting, the way we left off, there were a couple of concerns that the board brought up. First one was the 2 parking spaces as you pulled in, or for Vernon. No, I got to go in the front, not the back again. But there were 2 parking spaces that were in basically the ingress aisle. They were removed. Working with the architect, and you'll hear Mr. Vergona get up, I'm sure, right after me, to make this quick. We removed those and transfer them to the level. So when you come in underneath the building, you make the left-hand turn, and the 2 parking spaces were put into the place where one of the stores, or we took some space out of that area to create the 2 parking spaces. Then from that, there's also the concern, why would you have to walk all the way around? Because you couldn't get through the building itself because it stopped to keep the stores completely separated from the residential portion of the building. So based on that, we did 2 things. One, Mr. Vagona recreated the stairs, so now you come out of this elevation, you go up a half a flight of stairs, and you wind up at the elevation outside on the Kinderkamek Road. So you can walk basically from any of the parking
Trying to blow it up.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Any of the parking spaces at grade level, which is basically half a level down from the front because of the topography running on Kinderkamek Road to the east. Half a stair up, and now you're at this grade here. We also then took the hallway and continued the hallway straight out, so now you can then get an egress. There's no more dead end in the hallway. Went back. I know there was concern with the transformer. We placed the transformer here. The pole line is actually running along the easterly side of Kinderkamek Road. Excuse me. There's actually, if you go in front of the building currently tonight, there's actually transformers hanging on the pole that are actually servicing the building across the street. So more than likely, I didn't reach out for PSE&G. More than likely, that's going to be the location where they would want it because obviously they would serve it off the pole line that's actually there now. Other than that, those were, I think, the major comments that the board did. We went down, we did our homework, we came back, and that was the changes that we ultimately made.
You also removed 2 of the EV parking spaces
Yes.
in the garage at the recommendation of the fire
The fire department.
department.
Again, there were 2 EV spaces. If we go to the other sheet, because again, you come in on grade level and then go down. There were 2 EV spots here. Those are removed. We put 4 at this location. So 4 makes sense because each charging station can work off of 2. And then directly across, these would be EV-ready spaces, and then the handicap space or the ADA space will also be served by EV.
Now, Rob, just to recap, how many parking spaces are we providing on the site at this time with these revisions?
81.
That is 81 parking spaces?
That is correct.
That is including the credit for the EV stations that are permitted?
We're providing 81, but we require 94 with the EV discount. I believe it's 85.
So we're still 4
short.
parking spaces for variance.
Correct.
Now, with regard to the utilities, I think you had to do some flow calculations according to your letter. You had to update the sewer flow water demand?
No, I think the question was, we did that. I believe we did do the upgrade as
Yeah.
far as what this will produce, get it to the DPW director.
Did you do that?
I don't know if that went out yet, quite frankly. If it does not, then I believe we have to monitor the sewer for 30 days to make sure there's enough capacity, that there's enough conveyance in the line to get it ultimately to the BCUA system.
Are there any other revisions or updates to the plan?
One other update, your engineer brought up, and it was a valid point. Right now, there's a curb along the easterly side, on the post office side. That's actually where the drive-through was, that you would circumvent around. We're removing the asphalt at that location, and the concern was because there was an inlet currently at the north end of that property. The property actually sloped in that direction and picked up drainage in this area. We are now going to put in, because we're putting all landscaping in here to try to buffer this out, we're going to basically snake in some perforated pipe with some stone top it'll look decorative, but it'll act like a catch basin through the whole thing. Collect the water here, and then that'll be tied back in to the system and then out to the municipal system. And then the actual drainage system that's picking all of the excess water up will also run through that pipe in that direction.
Does that increase the water retention and slow up the water
It actually,
runoff?
it's to prevent any water from spilling over the concrete retaining wall that's there.
So
So
to
to collect it, prevent that.
Prevent that water
Yes.
spillover? And lastly, with the lot coverage, there's been a reduction slightly, just under 80% in the coverage.
That is, I just want to make sure, I don't want to.
That's why I offered you a letter, so it would help
Well,
you.
I have it right here. So it's, I believe it's 7982. That might be slightly, it might be slightly more than that because I think there was a 20 square foot error, if I'm not mistaken. So it's under 80%. Currently, it's at 79.66, and allowable in the zone is 85%. So we don't need a variance for that. We're still below.
And once again, the generator, we have now shown the generator?
We're actually showing the pad in the front, and again, based on, I believe the recommendation from the fire department and the board was that you wanted the entire building to be able to be under generator power in the event of a loss. With an elevator, so on and so forth, you're probably looking at roughly 200 kVA to run this. So we put a pad in that size. Obviously, we didn't develop the actual generator size, but the pad is large enough to accomplish that. I think there was a question as far as sound. Obviously, there's going to be sound attenuation. It'll be in a sound. It's not going to be exposed, so to speak. It'll have a sound attenuation of the actual box around the
You're going
generator.
to surround the generator with some
Well, it
type
comes that
of,
way.
some type of baffling, right?
Well, it comes that way, yes.
Any other enhancements to baffle the sound?
The only other thing that we couldn't get at this time, whether or not there's enough gas service that you would have natural gas. If you can't, public service can't do it, then obviously it would have to be a diesel generator.
And then that generator gets run once a week? Is there a
It's
state
gotta
law?
get-
Don't they have to test it?
Correct. But again,
I'm
it
sorry, I
has
didn't
to
hear
be
what you
certain.
said.
It has to
You
be.
spoke to him, and I didn't hear your
I
answer.
apologize. Yes, they have to be tested. It has to be tested at a certain time. Obviously, we would work with the town to make sure that it's not going to impact anybody with the noise or fumes or anything like that.
And that sums up all the changes to the plan since the last meeting?
That is correct.
There's a follow-up engineering comment letter from Negley Engineering from Mr. Atkinson.
Yes.
Dated May 1st. And did you have an opportunity to review his latest comments?
I did.
Are there any issues that you want to highlight, or can you comply with the comment letters
No,
and suggestions?
no, again, just the general comments. We have notes in the general notes of our plan, basically copying these, so they're on the actual plan. We do have a soil moving plans and earthwork calculations, but I'm not sure. I think there was a note in there saying that we didn't actually show the cross sections, but they are on earthwork, page 17, 18, and 19. So I'm not sure if that was missed or not.
You're referring to pages 17, 18, and 19 of what?
In the set that was provided to the board and the public.
There were a few comments such as insufficient grading information along the eastern property line, but Mr. Atkinson indicates you can cover that in testimony. Is that what you just did a few
I'm not
moments
sure
ago?
if it was enough, but again, we're going to actually.
Where do you want to go?
Perfect, you got it. So basically, there's spot elevations. There's an existing retaining wall that's actually on the post office property. That's not being touched, that's not being modified, none of the above. In between, again, is where the pavement was. This will be a grass landscaped area, and basically, we're holding the grades that exist today. So nothing is changing. This, obviously, because of the inlet in that corner, that'll be removed. And again, we're going to serpentine 6-inch perforated pipe through there to pick up the groundwater that actually runs through there, and then back into the municipal system, which it does have today.
Now, I see that the engineer notes Kindercomack Road is a Bergen County roadway. Have we filed the application with Bergen County at this time?
We sent them over the plans. I don't know if we filed the actual application until, obviously, we're done here.
and then we'll process, they'll either exempt it or have some comments?
Correct.
Lastly, soil movement. Have you addressed those items?
Yes.
And I don't have anything else. Chairman, that concludes the direct testimony of Mr. Costa.
I think if I can, there was one more. I think it was lighting, and that might have been from the T&M, and I believe your engineer. So I think I testified at the last meeting. They're all LED. They all can be controlled. I even had a lighting manufacturer in my office last week. Everything can actually be controlled with a phone if you want the controllers to do so. So I think, Caroline, I think your comment was that the lights, maybe they shouldn't be as bright. We can certainly dim them, but I'd rather put these lights in because you can't make them stronger if it's necessary. We can dim to get them to where we want, but obviously, if they have to be upgraded and larger, or brighter rather, that wouldn't be possible. So I'd rather stick with this. Certainly, we can tone it down. And then, obviously, if this gets approved, I think the recommendation was go back 6 months, take a look at it. If it's okay, great. If it's not, then we can certainly dim it to what you want to.
Okay, thank you.
welcome.
We'll start with our professionals and then we'll follow up if the board has any questions. So, Dave?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Costa. I do have a couple questions for you related to the site. So, as far as, and I may be getting meetings mixed up because we were part of the zoning board stuff where the board members here, this is all new to them. So, if this is stuff that you already talked about with the planning board, I apologize. But anyway.
I agree.
So as far as the site itself and the overall area of disturbance and stuff, is this application considered a major development or is it a minor development?
Minor development. It's not a major. Doesn't classify to a major based on the size of the lot and the size of the improvements offsite.
Right. So, and I guess the significance of that is really how things get handled from a stormwater perspective.
That is correct.
But what's being proposed here before us, is there proposed stormwater measures in place that handle the site runoff?
Yes.
And that'll reduce the runoff from the property?
That is correct.
Okay. And then as far as the drainage that you have, I guess that's ultimately going to tie into the township's existing system?
Correct.
And I don't think this was discussed here, but I believe we had talked about televising or verifying that the existing downstream stormwater system was sufficient and functional.
I'm not sure if it was here or was in the zoning board, but again, I'll put it on the record tonight. So basically, currently, the site is 80% developed, impervious. Everything runs off. I don't believe there's any stormwater management whatsoever on the site. Fast forward, if this is approved, there'll be a detention system. The flow will be choked down, and the storms will be reduced. 50% on the 2-year storm, 25% on a 10-year storm, 20% on a 100-year storm. So you'll have less water runoff coming off of this site in a peak flow than you would today. However, I think it was probably was at the zoning board. Ultimately, it ties in, heads east, goes into the Hackensack River, and then obviously heads south. We've offered to then go in, look at those pipes, make sure the pipes are okay, make sure there's enough capacity, that this will not affect any of the municipal system whatsoever. And again, it's not that far of a run from this property, obviously, to the banks of the river. So I'll put that back on the record. Before I came here tonight, I looked up to see how many miles of road Oradell has. 35.17 miles, including the county road, which has absolutely, and the only reason I'm saying that, they're changing the rules again in September, supposedly, for DEP.
I love that.
And the only reason I'm saying that, regardless of what you do here, if you do nothing on the roadway system throughout not only Oradell, New Jersey, or Bergen County, this has very little influence what's going to happen on the global effect on the region. That's all I'm going to say. But we are certainly doing it, and we will do it. I hope it does something. Quite frankly, where this is located, it's going to be de minimis of what it actually could do if there is major flooding from where it's going.
And then as far as the stormwater, you have it designed in such a fashion that it's not going to impact the neighbors as far as additional runoff or anything going towards the neighboring properties?
Absolutely.
And that's obviously with the added revisions that you had incorporated in here with the drainage along that eastern property line.
Correct.
Now, the question I had related to the grading on the eastern property line, I guess I was just a little confused on the plans on what was kind of going on that side. I mean, obviously, you're going to tie back into the existing property. You're willing, obviously, to work with our office on that to ensure that there's nothing.
100%.
Okay.
Actually, the wall is actually higher than it is on that wall that's on the post office property is actually higher than it is on our grade. So that's why it stops, and then it heads to the north into that catch basin, and then ultimately turns around and heads south and goes into the municipal system.
Because I think on the original plan before this version, it talked like the curbing along there. It looked like it was you had labeled it as like a tall curb, or
Right.
the curb was acted as a retaining wall. So I wasn't quite sure if that was still the case on that particular side or what was going on there.
But I'll certainly give you more information. But again, for the record, absolutely that water is going to be stopped, collected, and then moved to the south into the municipal system.
And then, so one thing I did note, and just for the record, there's some discrepancies between the architectural plans and the site plans as it relates to some of the parking configurations and stuff. I would assume that the engineering plans would govern as far as the layout?
I'm going to say yes, only because I have the microphone in my hand. I think the two parking spaces underneath, I think, were still labeled as EV on the architectural, but that's not the case. Everything's been moved outside. So if that's what you're referring to,
That was one of the biggest things that we saw. I just wanted to make sure for the
that's,
record.
and I think that was a requirement, not a requirement, but a recommendation from the fire department to get them out of there, which we did. So if it didn't transfer over, again, trying to make these changes quickly and get them back to the board and get back to a meeting, some things might have fell through the cracks. We tried, but again, we'll make sure that that is, but our plans are the correct configuration of the parking.
Okay. Another item we had noted, I think there was a minor discrepancy in your zoning table as far as the lot coverage. I think it's a little bit higher than the percentage that's shown on the plan that was
Correct.
submitted to us.
That is correct.
But I think, based on our
I think
calculations,
it's 20 square feet. I'm trying to do it quick in my head. I think the generator pad was maybe 190 square feet. I think the transformer was 100 square feet, and then the walkway out to, with the new configuration of the hallway, picks up another 100 feet, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah. But regardless, I think it's still within the threshold of what's allowed. You're not
Yes.
exceeding the 85%. I think
No.
it's roughly, I think you have it shown as 78 or 79%. I think it's like 80 and change, I think.
It could very well be.
Just so the
Again,
board's aware of that, there's just a minor discrepancy as far as what's shown in the zoning table. But they're still within the allowed lot coverage percentage for the zone, so. All right. Stormwater was fine. Sanitary sewer, I think you provided in your testimony that you'll submit the request from the town. Most likely, you'll have to do sewer study.
30-day
because I
study.
don't think the town has records on that, but prepared for
I mean,
that.
if we have to, we've been using a company called Jeff Heiner and Associates. He'll put a meter in one of the manholes downstream, and he'll monitor it for 30 days and then give the results, obviously, to your engineer, to your DPW director, whoever else in the town you'd like, Mayor. Certainly, it'll be public information if that's what you require.
And then I guess, will Mr. Page be getting into like site circulation and that type of stuff? And deliveries and how that'll be handled?
We have a traffic expert. I mean, I could keep going all night.
No, I mean, if he's going to talk about it, then we'll let you.
Yeah.
I know you like to go into everything. Just making sure. All right.
Well, he knows. They know you.
All right. I think those are the main things that I had. As far as the soil movement, I think the comment we had really was more so, I think we're missing calculations. I know you provided great detail as far as cross-sections and stuff. We just needed some calculations, which just how that number got derived.
Okay,
So,
no problem.
all right. I have no further questions at the moment.
Thank you. Caroline?
Thank you. You had brought up the lighting.
I think that was in your letter, if I'm not
Right.
mistaken.
Right.
There's two letters.
Right. We actually, you're correct. The letter dated May 2nd is the revised, because that picked up the generator variance, which we'll get to. But the lighting that you brought up on page 12, so it appears that you're exceeding the requirements. So that's what we brought up. That could result in an additional variance. I'm just putting that out there.
Yeah, I think, all right, what I said, again, two things are happening. I testified at the last meeting, there's going to be bollards around the entire frontage on Kinderkamack Road and then spill across on the side street. Again, everything is LED, everything can be modified or dimmed if required. But again, if there are points where there's not enough light, then obviously you can't go in the other direction if it doesn't exist. That's all I'm saying. We do need a variance because you could turn the switch all the way up. Then I'd rather require that or ask for that. If you want us to lower it, we certainly can, and we would meet the requirement.
Okay.
We don't want to impact, obviously, we don't want to impact anybody in the town, any of the driving public, any of the above. But the difference between years ago, other than getting on a ladder and spray painting or putting a house shield, you couldn't modify the lighting. Today, it's a much, much easier. You can put controllers on these, and you can literally dim them, turn them up, turn them on, turn them off, and literally, you can work it from your phone.
So your testimony is that the lighting can be addressed remotely?
Yes.
Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, my concern is I just want to make sure that we hit all the, we identify all the necessary variances so that the application is, is thoroughly reviewed. So we brought that up because it does exceed the standards within your ordinance. So I guess your planner will speak to that if that's going to end up being a variance. And I thought I saw your planner here.
Oh, there it is,
Oh,
yes.
I couldn't, yes, I thought I saw him come in. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
One of the comments I thought I read in your report was that it didn't show fixtures along Baldwin and Kinderkamack. Has that been revised?
I thought that the new plans did do that. I do recall that from the my prior review.
This was
You
May
showing-
2nd.
Are you showing the fixtures?
The fixtures are on there, yes.
The fixtures are on there? Okay.
Yes.
On Kinderkamack and Baldwin.
Yes, and
Absolutely,
Mac and Belgrade.
yes.
And then the last question I wanted to ask you was about the generator. So that's, and I know you testified that was included in response, I believe, to discussions with the
Correct.
board.
Obviously, you've touched on it, that we would need a variance for that.
Who said that?
Who said
No,
the...
you said there was a discussion with the board?
I thought his testimony from earlier this evening was that the generator was put in response to
Fire
I think
department.
it's the fire
Fire
department.
department?
fire department.
It was the fire department, and I believe there was a board member at the last meeting that brought it up.
Is it required?
I believe the fire department
Recommended
is
it.
requesting or requiring them to put. It's not.
It's a recommendation.
It's a recommendation.
Correct.
Right.
I mean, the pad obviously would be at grade level, so you could put the pad in and not put the generator in, but then you could at least bring the conduit there in the future if you had to put it in. At least the infrastructure would be there to do it.
The pad is a problem, though.
The pad is the problem.
Well, the location of the pad is a problem. It's going to cause another variance.
The generator location
Correct.
is resulting.
Can't be in the front yard.
So that was my question, is if there's going to be a generator, is there a testimony with respect to how this location was chosen? From an engineering perspective, I appreciate that. I'm sure we'll hear planning testimony on it, but I was wondering if there's any additional information that could be provided.
At the last board meeting, and again, I apologize which board member brought it up, to remove the 2 parking spaces, I said there would be testimony as far as the excess parking that's in the area. and I believe I heard a very distinct, we want those two spaces somewhere else. Certainly, we could move the generator, put it in the rear, put it in, and take away another parking space. Obviously, that could be done. But that would be the choices.
Look,
in this location.
I just jump. I was the one that specifically mentioned the two spaces on the corner, but I don't recall anything about a generator being discussed amongst the board.
Yeah, that's why I asked.
There
I
was
think,
nothing.
I think the generator came about from, I think the fire department issued a
never
memo
the
that
board.
indicated they
Okay.
suggested a generator.
I certainly apologize.
That's the confusion.
Okay, then certainly we were confused. When we left here that night and the next morning, certainly we had a conversation amongst the team, and I thought I heard loud and clear that you would want a generator, or the fire department wanted it, and you got, it's not required, and again, I don't want to take the thunder from the architect, it's really his purview. It's not required under code. Certainly what you could do, and I've done this in pump stations. You can put a manual switch. So if you had to, you could put pigtails outside the building that you could get a trailer-mounted generator, hook it up on a temporary basis if you needed to run something. You could certainly do that. And I've done that in various municipalities.
So that would be an alternative to what's proposed now?
I'm saying if the concern is to run this building in the event of a power outage, an extended power outage, you can certainly do that you get a trailer mounted, bring it to the site.
Look, I can't tell you what to do, but it's not a mandate, and it was a recommendation.
Understood.
And where it is today, if you want to put a generator in, and I guess they could come in handy, is going to be a variance. And I would not approve
Okay.
that variance in the front yard of the building.
I'm just going to let the board discuss it without interrupting them. Chairman, I have a bad habit of interrupting the board when they're deliberating. I think we all understand. It's not mandated in your ordinance or site plan checklist. The fire department, as always, life safety issues, concerns, wants to see something. They recommended it. Mr. Costa accommodated the facility. But of course, there's always a trade-off. Life safety, belt and suspenders, is it really necessary? And then, of course, the aesthetics of being in the front setback. We always run into this issue of some of the utilities. Hopefully, we try to hide it by the building, not expose it to the public. If the board has a strong preference that we not have a generator placed in the front because it does trigger a new variance, we can certainly withdraw from that. We don't have to have it, but again,
I'm not recommending
generators have their own life,
Yeah, so, look, I think the alternative I heard is probably not a bad idea, to be able to have a roll-up, come up and plug in.
Simple.
Yeah, we'll do the connections that are necessary to make that happen.
I think primarily, again, as the chairman said, we can't tell you to do it or not to do it, but the location in which it's proposed is obviously not ideal for the aesthetic of this nice building that you're putting up. But you're also right on the edge of the street. You have a park across the street. Quality of life is shot listening to this thing while it's running or during a test. So I don't know if you need one that big that requires that much room. If you just do life safety systems, I thought you testified that the whole building was going to be powered by this generator.
You have an elevator. The elevator draws a lot of amperage, so because of that, if you want to run the elevator, you're going to need a sizable unit.
Yeah, I think you just got to balance the community in which you're citing this thing and the need for the life safety systems.
And
They're important, obviously, but I'd say in today's day and age, is there something you could do with solar panels and battery storage? I don't know.
We're
Elon
understand.
Musk would know.
He would.
He would know.
What?
Elon Musk would know.
So I think that we can balance the aesthetic concerns that the board has.
Okay, I'm sorry for that interruption, Ms. Ritter.
No, thank you, that's fine. Actually, I was going to ask about the generator, so it all worked out, and why it was where it was.
I
But
think it's
we're all-
gone. I think the generator is completely gone. If I had an eraser, it would be gone even faster, but it's gone, and we'll certainly put in,
The conduits that you talked about,
Yes.
right? You call them pigtails?
well, basically it is, and you hook it up. It's a disconnect, a quick disconnect.
Was there anything else?
No, thank you, no. Well, I have questions on parking needs, et cetera. I'm assuming Mr. Page is going to handle that?
Yes.
Okay.
Is he
That's
here?
it.
Mr. Page?
Yes.
Steve, do you have any questions?
Nothing.
Okay. Mr. Givlin?
No.
Members of the board?
I just have one question. I don't know if you're the right person to answer it, but when we were talking about egress from that first floor corridor
Yes.
behind the retail, I don't know if I can't remember if you were clear or not whether folks wanting to access the retail could use that corridor. You know, people that are going to park in that area, you know, especially handicap, and I don't know if there's a requirement for that, but they're not going to be able to maneuver those stairs to get out to Kinnickinnick Road. So there's a lift there
There's a lift.
that would get you up into that corridor behind the retail.
I would prefer the architect deal
Okay,
with
so
that concern.
I'll ask that question when the architect comes back. Okay.
Because Mr. Costa will answer any question, whether
Okay. Well, I started off by saying I don't know if you're the right person, Mr. Costa, but
but he certainly
we'll
believes he
defer
is.
it to the architect. Okay.
No, no.
You want that?
Yeah.
Okay, understood.
All right.
Mayor.
Just a question. So you increase the number of EV charging spots in the lot. Sorry, microphone management here. How does that affect the required number of spots for the building? Because I would assume if it's for a charging and somebody's parking in the spot that doesn't have an EV, right? So you've now restricted further the amount of available parking. I know we want to plan for these things, but I'm just curious as to how that.
You know, Mayor, 3 years ago, when they adopted this law, I don't know if the state knew what they were doing and the mandates, and then you get this 2-for-1 credit, the minimum 15%,
Right.
and then, you know, charging stations, et cetera. So you can game the end result by adding more EVs than necessary, and they're not really being used. There's also legislation pending about having them available for non-electric vehicles to park in them without restricting them. But again, somebody is not likely to park in an EV station overnight and deny the member of the public from using it.
Unless there's not a space for them, correct?
Right.
So that's why I was just asking, you went from 2 to 4.
Right.
What was the rationale behind that? Because theoretically, you'd be removing 2 other spots for a non-EV vehicle to park in, right? And you're short on parking to begin with.
No, actually, we require under the state, under your ordinance, under the state ordinance, 15% of the parking has to be EV.
Okay.
And over 3 years, you can do it in over 3
You
years.
could phase it in.
You phase it in over three calendar years. But that's what we did. So you need 9 of them. So we're showing 4 and 4 in the parking lot. If I could just get this back for 1 second. So there's 4 on this side, 4 on this side. This is EV ready. I'm sorry, these are EV ready. This is future. And then the ADA space is also. So that's 9. Then you get a 10% credit. So we require 94 parking spaces. You get a 10% credit because of the mandate for the EV. Excuse me, brings you down to 85. And we're providing 81.
Okay. You could have stopped,
72 are required for the residential, and that's,
you could have stopped at the state. That would have explained a lot of confusion.
That's what it is.
Question for Steve. Do we have anything in our ordinance about the streetscape in front of the building? I know we don't exactly have the streetscape that's along the rest of the Kinderkamack corridor, but is there any consideration, or is that something the council's just not thought of yet, and this is our first application to be developed outside of those parameters?
Well, other than the master plan and sort of recommending that they do similar escapes for than what's in the borough, more of a
Right, so
borough hall and
whether you like it or not, currently there's the brick band, there's a concrete walk has a distinctive pattern to it, and there's a certain style of a light fixture.
That was a project that was implemented from Oradell Avenue all the way up to the end of the south end of Kinderkmack Road.
I get it, but if you do any work in that area, you have to restore what's there, or you have to build to what's there, right? You have to maintain the streetscape. So I guess I'm asking, is there any requirement north of Oradell Avenue for that to occur, or does that stop at Oradell Avenue?
It stops at Oradell Avenue.
So the council would have to think about amending the ordinance to address any frontage or streetscape outside of the existing parameters.
That's correct.
Mayor, are you still talking about the commercial area?
No, I'm just talking about the Kinderkmack and Veldren frontage, right? There's a
Right.
very distinct streetscape
Yes,
in the central business district, which I think this falls.
And it doesn't come
Greg,
across
is that right?
this-
This is in central business district?
And it doesn't come across this property? No.
Doesn't sound like from the testimony that the lighting and the.
I have to tell you, if you have a streetscape standard, we want to fit in.
Okay.
I think we'll blend, like the lighting, the lanterns, or whatever you use, along Kinderkmack. We certainly want that continuity, even if you don't have it in the ordinance.
Okay. I don't think it's anything more exorbitant than what you're proposing. It may be just done
Probably we
slightly
could
differently.
substitute some
But
materials.
Dave, maybe you can work with the applicant to
We're not
assist them with
opposed to it, Mayor. It makes sense. It's a very prominent property, Kinderkmack Road, sure.
Thank you.
So just so we're clear, so the testimony you guys would kind of carry through the existing streetscape we have that's just south of here along the frontage.
In other words, we're not going to spend an extra $300,000, but we'll substitute whatever we were showing, and we'll follow at least the lanterns, and we'll make it look homogeneous.
Okay, my last question goes to the perforated pipe along the east side. So, Mr. Costa, would you describe that as more of like a bioswale that you're trying to capture runoff from the parking lot? Are there curb cuts that is allowing the water to infiltrate?
Actually, we want to put everything back into the detention system.
Right.
So we're not doing that.
Okay.
It's actually lower, and that's where the high curb comes in, because that area we're not going to fill. It's actually lower because of the retaining wall on the post office property. So we're not putting any additional fill on that retaining wall. So not getting into it, not touching it. We're actually taking the car. Right now, it's paved, so it's a traveled way. It's traffic on that. So that's coming out. It's going to be lower. So from the proposed grade of the parking lot to that drops down, I believe, 1.5 feet, maybe.
But I guess my question is that part of your retention strategy for the short term,
No.
where it will infiltrate, or if it exceeds a certain level, it will overflow
It's
into
actually,
the pipe?
no, it's not going to infiltrate. It's going to be captured. Surface flow, I think the worry was to keep it away from the post office and out.
Okay.
So that pipe will be higher to the surface, not lower I'm sorry, it'll be lower where it's going to come in and get out and not infiltrate into the ground.
And the area above gets planted, you said?
There's plantings in there, but my thought is, I know there should have been a detail on the plan, and I apologize. We've done this in the past. Basically, we use river stone. So wrap the pipe, wrap stone 3/4 inch around the pipe, and then at the surface treatment, just on top of the fabric that would be, say, 6 inches below, put river stone, and then just have that meander where it'll look decorative. It won't look like with a pipe sticking out of the ground.
Those are all my questions, Chairman.
Thank you.
Any other questions from members of the board?
I just a little confused in terms of the comments that we got from the fire department. The last meeting, I thought there weren't any. And so at some point, we got some more comments that,
No, I mean, so the document I have here is actually marked as exhibit, well, I'm hoping, yeah, no, this would have been from here. Exhibit A4, which I think was done at the last meeting. It's dated March 5th, 2025. So you should have had it at the last meeting.
I just thought somebody had mentioned that there were no comments from fire and police. That was my recollection.
We hadn't seen them prior to the meeting, but I believe they were circulated for us to
So-
take a look at during the meeting.
God, thank you. So the fire department asked, recommended, or suggested a generator. Am I understanding that?
Yeah, I mean, I can read what's here.
No, but that was all prior to the last meeting. They recommended it. We didn't discuss it.
I don't recall discussing it.
I don't recall discussion about it. It's just, it's item 4 in their letter.
I have to say, we did discuss it because there was discussion around having a generator to support the basics within the building. That I remember talking about.
Sure, because we marked it at the meeting, and we discussed it.
I didn't have, I know my office didn't have that letter, and I don't think the board had it possibly to that evening.
Could a generator be roof mounted?
Right. Good point.
Well, I mean, if it's somebody else, I just want to bring that up. It could be roof mounted.
We actually discussed that, if you could roof mount the generator, but again, depending on the size of this generator, if you're going to run the building, literally, I'm taking a stab and throwing it on the wall, you're probably around 200 kVA, which is substantial. To mount that, it's probably more of a detriment to see that on the roof than it would be to put it on the ground and then screen around the generator itself.
You could locate it within the parking lot in the back and lose a space.
You would lose a space, and again, even if you put it in the back, because this property is so, obviously it's a corner lot, you have the post office next to you, you have the parking lot to the north, you would still have to screen it. Otherwise, it certainly would be visible. Whether it's in the front, whether it's in the back, it's going to be very
If
visible.
it was in the back, it wouldn't be near the park. That would be disruptive.
Would not be in the park, but certainly would be visible. And then again, your plans down the road, I'm not sure what you, but I think you have a lot of opportunity in this area, so that could impact your future plans.
And so then you've suggested the pigtails for a temporary hookup. Where would they go? Because we wouldn't want a truck pulling up where we said the generator couldn't be.
Again, would be temporary. Where's the mechanical room is in the front.
In the front corner.
But you could literally run conduit and put them anywhere.
So the point is, if that hookup is there, it's not at the front where,
No, it wouldn't be you could put it, again, you'd have to temporarily take a space
Yes.
away, but again,
That would be
you just hook
temporary.
it up, throw the switch, you're running.
so if in terms of that recommendation, and if that's how the board as a whole wants to approve it, as part of the record, that the pigtail hookup is not located along the frontage of the building, that it's located within the rear of the building where a temporary generator would be picked up. That's just, I'm putting that one out
Well,
there.
you would have to anyway, because again, it would be trailer mounted, so it would be on wheels. You'd have to put it on the asphalt, so you'd have to put it there. You couldn't, unless you put it in the street, you couldn't put it in the front.
Okay. And another question is, you had moved the EV parking spaces from under the building to out, but you still have...
With the exception of the ADA.
And why didn't you put that one out?
Well, the ADA needs to be closest to the front door based on two things. I believe based on the building code, right, the barrier-free code, that space has to be as close as possible to your ingress and egress
Of
into
the building entrance.
Correct.
But it's located it's not located to the, if I'm at that parking space, how do I go in the building?
There's the,
We'll let the architect answer that.
It's, okay, it's just on the site plan though, just show me where the door is. Can you do it over here?
Jason, yes. Right there, right there, exactly.
this is the door now.
That's the door, and where's the space? Gotcha.
And this is the it's very accessible.
Understood.
And then this is your, again, and it has to work with the column lines also.
Yep.
Even though it's a clean canvas, the canvas is not as clean as you think it is. So we've tried to incorporate everything that you possibly can, and again, I think I said it earlier, your ordinance permits this, and again, there's ratios between obviously the residential and the business to make all the things work, and then try to incorporate, remove the spaces from the front, put the spaces underneath, take away some of the things. It's a balancing act. And
Understood.
I think we balanced it pretty well, and I think we covered
It's
a lot
a
of the
very nice
topics.
design. It's credit to the architect. Just to that point, and this is not the first time I'm seeing a new building. It's a new building, right? So that
Understood.
testimony needs to be careful because it's brand new, right? So the columns can move, the structure can be designed a
A lot
certain
of things
way,
can move. Correct.
and so forth, so.
We put a lot of homework into this, I can tell you that. And hopefully it gets approved by this board, and I think it's going to be a very, very, very pleasing compliment to this borough.
Any other questions from members of the board? Then I'll open it up to the public for questions for this testimony only.
Good evening, Paul Atsunas, 50 Beverly Road. I looked at the plan today, and I saw that the generator was on Veldran Avenue side.
It's gone.
I know that it's gone, but the transformer is on the Kinderkamek side, right?
Correct.
Okay. What I wanted to know is, on the transformer, how much clearance is there between the sidewalk and the transformer? And is it going to be covered around? Protected?
Yes. Covered screen, yes.
Screen. Okay, and how much clearance is there from a pedestrian walking on the sidewalk?
I don't know if we could mention that. I think we put a 10 by 10 pad, again, because we don't have, obviously, the loads in the building, so on and so forth. But looking back at it, we came up with a 10 by 10. I think from the sidewalk itself, it's a 6. Well, again, this could change because of a streetscape. But there would be a few feet between the sidewalk and that. And it'll be screened out with arborvitae.
Okay. On the EVs, how many EVs do you have on this?
9.
9. Okay.
Including the handicap.
Does that include the
Along the same...
I'm sorry, may I ask a follow-up? Just want to clarify. Mr. Latunas, I'm sorry. Does that include the make ready?
Correct, all of them, yes. It's 15% of the requirement, so that comes out to 9.
No, it doesn't.
So,
He went to a different school than we did.
I was,
apologize.
you know, I worked for engineers for many, many years, and they love to
10%
joke
is
about the
9.
planners and the
10%,
math.
10%.
So, right. So can we, I'm sorry, Mr. Latunas, to cut you off.
That's
Can
okay.
we, because I noticed this when you were testifying.
So what
So
do
you have a, so you have, yes. You have 13, I believe, you have 13 required, but you have more. You increased your EV and your EV ready, didn't you? You didn't?
I'm on the 10%, I apologize.
I believe it's 15.
That's what I have as proposed, is 15
And I think that's
total
what he has.
EV and make ready. You went up, you increased from 14 to 15. The 10% is the maximum amount of bonus credits you can take
Correct. But you
against
need
the,
15 you need 15
obligation, which
you
is
need
what I think the
15
mayor might have been partially asking about.
Let me just get this correct. We have 8. We have 8,
Here, you got them here, and then you
and over here. Just want to make sure we get
have, and
them.
you got the handicap.
Time out, just give me 1 second.
I can't remember
You're correct. And you know what? This is incorrect. You only need 15% of the 94. So we have 4,
This is 14.
yeah. You have 4 that can be put in place right now, if it's approved. These are make ready. Then we had 2 here, and then 4 make ready here. But these 2, I believe, can come out, right? 8?
So you need 15, I think.
I thought they've proposed 15.
And there's 15 proposed on the plan.
Right.
That's it. Okay, that is it. That is correct.
So you,
15 is a combination of what's being provided today, and then there's some that are
Over 3
EV
years.
ready.
Right.
Right, because then
And
every
then we take
3...
a 10% credit.
No, you're taking, respectfully, I don't want to speak for you, but I believe you get a bonus credit for each space up to 10% of the obligation. Is that what you're maybe saying? With the parking?
10%. Well, you get 10% of the requirement, right? So it's 94, you get 9.
A maximum of 10%, yes.
Right?
You get
And you
one
gotta
for,
round
you
down. You can't round up.
that's correct. You get an extra, you get like a
So
bonus credit.
It's
for
9. You get credit for 9. We need 94. We need 85. We're providing 81. And we're showing 15%.
You're showing 15 EV and a total of 15 EV and EV make ready.
Correct, which we can over 3 years.
Yes. And that's what you're showing. Okay.
Right.
So thank you. Thank you,
And
Mr.
again, I
Lu.
think the mayor summed it up. The state, when they came out with it, they give you a credit for 10% because any electric car doesn't need a parking space. I don't know why, but they apparently they don't. But again, I didn't write the ordinance. You didn't write the ordinance. I don't think anybody in this room wrote the ordinance. But that is how it's written, that you get, I guess in order to try to supplement the cost of doing this, that's what
Can
the
you use the
state thought.
microphone, please? He's holding up the sign.
That's what the state, when they passed this law, that's what they thought.
How did you lose control?
I don't know. I only
Listen,
asked
now-
about how many
think it
EVs
was
we
how
have.
many-
I think
I
Mr.
think we're good to move on.
Mr. Latunis, my apologies. I just felt that
That's
the
okay.
record,
No,
the
I
record needs to be
No,
clarified.
I'm glad that you asked the questions.
Okay, so-
Because one of the questions, the reason why I wanted to know how many EVs you have, it's 15, and along with what the mayor said, the residents, what if can the residents park in the EVs overnight?
That is being discussed at the legislature. That's not the law yet.
Yeah,
It's
because
trending that.
nobody can use the EVs if somebody's parked there.
How about handicap spaces? How many times they're empty in the private property?
Well, a handicap, we know it's designated for a handicap.
But then.
And if you
what I'm
don't
saying-
have your sticker, you're gone. You got a ticket.
What I'm saying is they're not used 24/7 either.
Yeah.
In most places.
Yeah. Well, but the reason for an EV would be because you want to charge your car.
Right.
Of course, And if people are parked there overnight, they can't charge their car.
Okay, I'd asked if we get back to questions, Mr. Latunis.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, isn't it true that if they're parked there
Just
overnight,
please
they
ask
can't park their
questions of the
car?
testimony.
How's that for a question, Mr. Carnival?
Statement.
That's basically a question. Okay.
Like Shepherd.
Now, getting back to the transformers, 10 feet, the clearance from the sidewalk? From
We're showing 3.5 feet.
Oh, 3.5 feet. Okay, I wanted to write that down. Good. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
The other question here I have, on the stormwater system, you stated that it's going to go into the Hackensack River, which is the source of the Hackensack River, right there, after the dam. Now, will you be filtering or cleaning any of that wastewater?
I believe so, and I think I testified on that. I just want to make
It's not wastewater.
It's stormwater. The majority of it is picked up on the roof, which is considered clean anyway.
You need a treatment or something when it's going out of the parking
Yeah,
lot?
I think we have a treatment facility in there, and I believe that came up at the last meeting. So the answer to that is
Scrubbers and all
yes.
that?
Yes.
Scrubbers, all that stuff.
In this one, I think it's a mechanical system.
Because I recall in the previous time that you were talking about this, that there's a possibility of having a filter to clean the waste from the garage on the lower level. When you wash the garage?
In the lower level, you need a pump. Again, you need a pump to get it up into the detention system. From there, it's gravity. Then it goes through the system, and there's a filter in the system itself before it exits into the municipal system.
From the lower level garage?
Lower level pumped to the upper level.
It's going to be pumped up?
And gravity from that point.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Trying to avoid the architectural stuff. Can I ask you an architectural question?
You could try, I mean, they'll tell me I can answer it, but I think you should answer, yeah, I think you could, I think your best bet is to wait for the architect.
Okay, okay.
Ah, you're blocking. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're a mess tonight.
Is there anyone else from the public who would like to ask questions of the engineer? So I'll close public, and please bring your next witness. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We have the eminent architect, Ray Vadona. Mr. Vergona will remind you that you were placed under oath at the last meeting. You still remain under oath for your sworn testimony.
Yes.
Thank you. Ray, since the last meeting, some modifications had to be made to the corridor and some adjustments at the entry points on the building. Can you highlight for us
Yes.
what changes were made?
Yes. Do you want me to go through the drawings in
Yeah.
order, or do you just want me to discuss those items?
Well, no, go through where you have the changes.
We made changes to 4 of the architectural drawings. The first drawing, it just has an adjustment in the numbers, building areas and retail area and so on, because
The notes changed.
the notes changed based on the reconfigured first floor plan.
Okay.
The second drawing, which is SK2,
And Ray, when you refer to the second drawing, just tell us what it is so the record is clear. These are elevations?
these are elevations of the north and east side. And this simply shows the level of the garage, the lower level garage and so on, which was added to these drawings. There was no substantial change, though, to this drawing.
It didn't change the height of the building or
Nothing
anything?
changed, other than there's a more definitive indication of the garage floor at the lower level.
The illustration was more
That's
full.
right. It's the dashed line that's
Okay.
shown on these elevations. The third drawing, which is SK3, the changes here were,
And what is that, Ray?
this is
What
the
level is
basement
that?
plan of the building. And it includes the lobby level, which is at an intermediate level. And what changed here, there's a slight adjustment in the walls to accommodate the hallway upstairs. The EV spaces were eliminated from this level. In the more recent PDF that you got, you may have been looking at the older one, but it was revised prior to the meeting. And essentially, that was what was changed here. So there weren't significant changes here. And the SK4 drawing, the last drawing with changes, was the one that had the more significant changes. And if we start on the left side, the stairway was improved to allow for access from the rear and from the garage level through the interior fire stair and out to the Kinderkamak roadside. So there is a way to walk through and come to the retail level from the back and from the garage. In addition, if you recall, we had a retail corridor which ended and would have had to egress through the apartments. And instead, we've continued that corridor on through to the south side where it has an exit door out, and that door can also bring you around to Kinderkamak Road as well. So essentially, that was the change of this drawing.
That improves what we call means of egress
Yes.
or repose if there's a fire or something. That
It helps
improves
from the
that.
fire standpoint. It also helps from the convenience of being able to walk through. And this drawing also has a change because the configuration changed on the retail. The numbers changed within the floor plan to reflect that.
Will that only be for egress, that door?
Well, for deliveries too, we're anticipating and what we've got in the rear of the building is a what we call a delivery zone, which would allow for a van to come up the ramp and deliver to the retail spaces through the retail corridor and not have to stop on Kinderkamack Road. There's no parking on Kinderkamack Road. So not only does it serve as a secondary fire exit, but it also serves as a delivery. Let's see what that goes over. I've got to go to the other side. Thank you. So, as I say, this corridor is now configured to have an exit door out the Belgrade side. And there's a loading area, a drop-off and delivery area here with a ramp which would take you up into the retail corridor and it would allow for deliveries from the back. So it serves as a handicapped access, it serves as a delivery route, and it serves as a fire exit.
You're referring to the egress door on Veldran Avenue, right?
Yes, the system, the retail corridor and the exit, which was added on Veldran.
So if you're handicapped and you want to access the retail, you would use that corridor?
You would use that corridor.
Or you'd go to the sidewalk. Or you'd go to the sidewalk on Veldran?
You could come around and, but that's a long route. I'm not even sure whether that actually would meet the 5% maximum slope. So this is a positive, we know this works. This is a positive way of handicapped access to these retail spaces.
Any other changes in the floor plan, Ray?
No. The other floors remain the same. The apartments remain the same. We're proposing, obviously, we're going to have emergency lighting and so on in the building. And so the code does not require us to have a generator, as long as we take care of the emergency lighting with rechargeable battery units.
Chairman, that concludes Mr. Vergona's direct testimony, but I think there were 2 or 3 questions you were holding in abeyance for Mr.
No, I think he answered my question.
How wide is that corridor? It's 6 feet wide.
Okay. Dave, do you have any questions?
I do not have any questions.
Caroline?
No, thank you. He answered all my questions.
Steve?
None.
Any other questions from members of the board? So I'll open up to the public for... Sorry, Greg?
No, I just want to make a quick comment. Yeah, I had mentioned at our last meeting, there may have been some sort of, access from the back to the front, and, I think these changes, address that issue. So I think these changes are good.
Thank you.
Sure.
So I'll open it up to the public if anybody has questions for Mr. Vergona.
Holzman is 50 Beverly Road. The staircase that's at the staircase. There's a common staircase that you have that you can go from the garage down and go up to the other levels.
That would be the one right here.
Right. Now, that staircase goes up to the residential areas too, right?
That's right, it does.
It is, because last time I asked you, you said it wasn't, but so you changed it, right?
No, it always went to the residential areas above, but it didn't connect the garage. It didn't show the connection from the garage level up and through the Kinderkamack Road, which it now shows. You can see the risers. It's about, as Rob said, about a half a level difference. Kinderkamack to the rear.
Okay, if you go now to the southwestern corner of the building, there's an entrance there. Now, did you say that that was for the handicapped people to go in?
That is one entrance that, yes, that has handicap parking spaces. That appears on this floor plan prior to this, the earlier, the SK3 drawing.
No, it's a door opening into that area.
So we'd have to go to the next drawing, which was the SK3 drawing, to see that.
There's like a pad there, right? A concrete pad,
Talking
and then a doorway.
Talking about this one here. Yeah,
Yeah.
Not a handicapped entrance, that's just a fire exit.
it's got a step.
Oh, it's a fire escape.
That's a fire exit, that's the terminus of the retail corridor.
Oh,
Is that a step there?
Yes,
Is a step out that door?
there's a step, there's a platform and 2 steps.
okay.
There are no steps in the other room, the other side of this, right?
So the handicapped people that come in, where are they going to come in?
You're gonna come in, they're gonna park in the rear lot, they're gonna come up the ramp and into the retail corridor.
Oh, okay.
The ramp is handicapped accessible.
Now that ramp is also going to be used for deliveries,
Yes, it is.
and the handicapped are going to use the same ramp.
They can use the same ramp, yes.
And if there's a truck there on the ramp, how does the handicap going to go in? They're not going to be able to get in, no?
No, the space is independent of the ramp. There's a space, a walkway, and then the ramp. Then the doors into the retail corridor and so on.
Okay. I noticed the corridors, you said they were 6 feet wide.
That's correct.
Now, is that, the other one here also on this side? Is that 6 feet wide also?
Yes.
Okay. So when they come down the ramp, you have doors that swing out,
Yes.
not in.
Yes, because they're exit doors and they have to swing in the direction of exit traffic.
So how is the handicapped guy gonna come in if the door swings to his face?
It works. They can do that. That occurs in every building almost where you have a double door.
So there's
It's a
enough room.
standard configuration.
Don't you hit a...
It could be fitted up with a, but
Push it and swing into your face.
Okay,
There's no room for the handicap.
so if you think so.
Different.
the one thing I did fail to mention, the 2 spaces that we took from the front yard are located in the garage in this area. And as a result of that, the retail space was reduced by a small amount, and the numbers have changed to reflect that.
Is there anything to stop a delivery truck from going into that area and then using that lift to bring the stuff down?
No.
So why is the lift there?
Well, because this garage area, this upper garage area, is about 4 feet lower than the main floor of the retail floor.
So who uses the lift?
A vehicle can come into this area,
Right.
unload, and then they can use the lift to bring any packages up to the level of the
Oh,
retail.
so they will be taking deliveries there then?
That's another route that they can use to.
Okay, that's what I asked. Okay,
So bad, boy.
thank you.
Shaking my head. Kid. Doesn't have it. It's a shame. I kicked him out.
Thank you.
Are there any other members of the public that would like to ask questions of Mr. Bergona? And I'll close. Oh, we have one more question.
Just to follow up on a few things that were mentioned. To start, I'd like to suggest some directional signage. If I'm in that parking lot, how do I get to Kinderkamak? Where are the shops? Something to kind of make it clear where you need to go when you're in the back of the parking lot or in the parking lot underneath the building.
Sure, that's
It's always a good idea, Mr. Dressel. I went to an office building last week. It took me 20 minutes to get to this lawyer's office, and I couldn't figure it out.
I mean, this is for the building owner. I don't know how
And
successful
I think it's a good idea. We're going to do that.
These are going to end up being some building code questions, but the member of the public that just commented, the double door that runs out to the ramp, that right there, the double door.
Yes.
The one door swinging onto the ramp is going to be some sort of clearance issue with respect to the width of the ramp in that
The
door.
ramp meets ADA requirements.
I know, but the door swinging onto the landing.
That meets ADA requirements also.
Is that a 6-foot door
Yes, it's a 6-foot door.
with a double 3-foot leaf?
Yes.
Then that, it'll be a building code issue. I don't, respectfully, I don't think it does, but
No,
again,
it
it's not a
does.
planning issue.
It does, I've done it a dozen times.
All right. The other one,
The
concern.
ramp is sufficiently wide to accommodate that, that's the reason.
The 2 parking spaces that you added adjacent to the stair.
Yes.
That staircase, if I'm in an apartment and I'm coming down that staircase to exit, am I exiting to the parking level or am I exiting to Kinderkamak in the event of emergency?
You're exiting directly to Kinderkamak.
So the door,
There will be a separation. We show gated separation so that you can't you can't go past the level of exit discharge.
so the only other concern from a planning standpoint is people coming out of that door with someone backing up out of that parking space. No one knows someone's there until they're there, and that's a concern.
I mean, it's actually, the door swings into the,
I realize that, but
you're right,
if you're
yes.
pulling out, you don't know that somebody's stepping out,
yes.
and that's
It
concern.
may be possible for us to recess that door. Looks like no, we can't, because that also serves as the exit for the secondary exit for the garage level below.
it does.
Yes.
So you would want it to swing the other way, wouldn't you?
No, you've got to come up
Okay.
to the Kinderkamak
All right.
right there.
It's still an issue with
Because you don't
somebody.
want to exit inside. the
Right.
building.
It's still a blind spot. Somebody steps out and somebody's backing out at the same time. That's an issue.
I mean, it's a, probably unlikely, that's,
I wouldn't say it's unlikely. It's a very possibility. That to me is a safety issue.
Well, if we could relocate it to the side, but we're gonna have the same issue then with a different parking space, so we can't do that. I'm not sure, it's a common thing, but it's a possibility that you have to be.
That door's always open, free, right? If I'm in that staircase, I can open that door and get out, correct?
That's right.
Somebody checks their mirror, checks their camera, no one's there, they go back up, somebody opens the door, and now they stepped out.
Suddenly they're there.
Suddenly,
I think that,
I mean, we could prevent the door.
no, I think we're going to take another look at maybe a little recess of it.
It's just a detail that I think is
I
important.
know what you're saying.
We
The
could-
pedestrian just appears suddenly.
We
Yeah.
could restrict the access so that the door only allows the exiting
From the
out of
parking
this
lot.
area, so that you can't go back.
Understood.
Sleep on it, Ray.
Okay.
Sleep on it. You'll figure
Good,
it
I
out.
mean, it's something to consider, certainly.
We have another member of the public that would like to ask a question.
Hello, John Calanese, Oradell Avenue. It's tough to follow. Sure, Calianese.
And your address, please?
849 Oradell Ave. Oradell 07649. My concern or questions are around deliveries. most people take the path of least resistance. All the retail are on a single lane northbound on the Kinderkamak. Can you demonstrate how easy it is for delivery people to drive in Veldren, park, make their deliveries, and then get out?
We have our traffic engineer that'll lay that out.
Okay. Question, is the behind the building parking only for residents?
I believe the traffic consultant will also
Traffic guy.
get into that.
Okay.
We have a garage also under the building, just for
So
residents.
that's for the next. That's both for traffic, my questions? Yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the logistics of the parking will be here.
Are there any more members of the public that want to ask questions? So I'll close this section of the public questions.
Someone's coming in. Yeah.
I'm sorry, what's...
You have questions, sir?
It's not a question, it's when you're holding the mic, keep it close and don't wave it, the RF mic, because it fades in and out. I didn't have a question, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Your next witness, sir.
Thank you. We have Mr. Bill Page. Bill, follow the instructions, keep this close to your mouth. All right. Okay. You, I don't think, testified before, so we're going to swear you in.
You swear or affirm any testimony you give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Would you state your name and spell your last name, please?
It's William Page. It's P-A-G-E is the last name.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bill, give us your credentials. Start with grammar school, work your way up. Your educational background and your licensing.
Grammar school would be pretty boring. I have a bachelor's degree in urban planning from the State University of New York and a bachelor's in civil engineering from New Jersey Institute of Technology. I'm a licensed civil engineer in the state of New Jersey and several other states, licensed land surveyor in several states, a professional planner in New Jersey, and a certified municipal engineer.
Board will accept him as an expert witness.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bill, you heard some of the questions already. People are anxious. Why don't you just give us an overview of the parking layout and however you're comfortable with the turning radius and maneuverability of the site, and where you anticipate deliveries would be made, just as an overview. And you have some exhibits, I guess?
Yes, I do.
Okay. We haven't been marking the architectural and engineering plans because they've been on file and they were revisions. But I think this is new. Ryan, you think we should mark
Yes,
this?
we're up to
Aerial.
A6.
A6, I think. Bill, what do you call this area? An aerial view?
This is an aerial view of where the property is, and then it does show some of the municipal lots around the area as well.
So how was this generated, Bill? We just have to give you a little foundation.
Sure, I took this from Google. It's an aerial photograph of the area.
Right.
And what I've done, and I highlighted the parking lot, the municipal parking lot, the post office, and the parcel where the application is.
And to your knowledge, does this accurately reflect the existing conditions as we know them today?
Yes, they are.
Okay. Now, explain to us what markings you did. I see some bright yellow objects and things. Tell us why you did that.
What I wanted to do is, this yellow here is basically just says this is the Bank of New York building. This is our site. This yellow here, this shows that there's 152 parking spaces in this municipal lot. This is the one which is basically north and east of the post office and also from our project as well. There's a small parking lot down by the railroad, which is 14 spaces. There's another, well, this is the one between the park. There's another parking space. This is the one east of the railroad by the Hackensack River. It's 24 parking spaces. And then we have another parking space here on Oradell Avenue and back of the library, and that's 142 parking spaces. So what these are all municipal parking lots, so I just wanted to show the board what municipal parking lots are available around this particular site itself. And what I'll do is I'll get into the municipal lot, which is right adjacent to our proposed project a little bit later.
And Bill, just which is Kinderkamack Road?
What's going
right
in the bottom
middle?
and top, this is north-south,
Right.
this is Kinderkamack Road, this is Oradell Avenue, and what I'm pointing to now, which is right next to the big yellow spot, is Veldren.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So why don't you bring us through, we marked that as A6. Are you working with the engineering site plans as well?
Well, what I have here,
Are these your own exhibits you marked up?
this is the engineering site plan, but what I've shown on this drawing is the cars. One of the comments from the engineer for the borough is the turning radiuses of cars.
We're going to mark that, Bill. We'll mark it A7 because those are your turning maneuvers and turning templates.
Yes.
So that's the engineering site plan, but you've outlined. Is that brown? That color? That's a brown color you're using there?
Yes, this is. The brown colorings are the dimensions for a motor vehicle.
To show the turning templates, right?
Excuse me? Yes.
That shows, okay.
Yeah, the dash lines are the actual turning templates, and the...
I can't see that far, Bill, because I'm getting old.
I'm having a hard time here, too. The radiuses that I used are from AASHTO, which is from the Federal Highway Administration.
AASHTO?
Yes.
Okay.
And what you can see is the cars coming in from Veldren can make the turn to go to the lower
Bill, you want to explain
parking.
what AASHTO is, what type of organization that is?
That's the highway organization for the federal government. And what they do is they generate traffic studies, based on the government's regulations. It has turning templates for trucks, cars, everything for the
They also establish
standard.
speed limits and capacity.
Pretty much
all of
everything
that, right?
dealing with highways.
They're the major umbrella organization.
That is
All
correct.
traffic engineers rely upon.
They either rely on that or ITE,
Right.
trip generation.
Okay.
And then the state also has their own regulations. So again, what I'm showing here is a car is being able to make the turn to go into the lower parking level itself. And also a car making a turn coming out of the lower parking level, as well as a car coming in, so there's no conflict at that point.
So you're discussing cars, passenger cars, but there are different gauge or size vehicles. These are not trucks you're talking about.
No, if you wish.
I know you'll get to that. You have truck, okay. So these are passenger cars, more or less.
Yes. And the dimensions are standard dimensions. They're about 6.5 feet wide and about 18 to 19 feet in length. This now is a little bit larger than what a standard car is now. The car's got a little bit smaller, but again, you're only talking about inches. But this is the standard with the turning templates that I used from AASHTO.
Okay. Do you find that there are any difficult maneuvering issues or any interference with the free flow of vehicles? Assuming that all these parking spaces are full, cars can maneuver through the drive aisles readily?
Yes, the parking spaces are standard 9 by 18 parking spaces, and that is the industry standard for a parking space. You may end up with a 10-foot wide space if you're like at a Costco or a shopping center where you have shopping carts. But for residential use, office use, 9 by 18 is the standard. And then a 24-foot wide aisle. So again, what is shown here by the engineer is everything is standard in the industry for residential turning movements.
Okay. And when you're showing the ingress-egress arrows on the left side of your diagram, where's that? What street is that?
That's Veldren Avenue.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else you want to show us?
The next turn that I have Again, this is the engineer's site plan.
Right, and then you've superimposed some information?
What this turning radius is shown here, this is a 35-foot truck, an SU-30.
Let's mark that A8, Bill. And that's the turning template for 35-foot length truck?
It's a 30-foot truck.
30
That's
foot?
a standard box truck, also a garbage truck. The question that was brought up is, can a 30-foot box truck pull into the site from Veldran Avenue, go into the designated loading area, unloading area, and then be able to pull out to leave the site? What the engineer had done too, which is quite good, is they made like a curved area at this concrete raised island. So when the truck pulls into the parking space, he doesn't have like a squared off area where he could hit the curb. So as you can see by the turning template, that the truck can make it into that designated area, and then leaving, he can either come out and then get him either back out of the site, or what I have on the next drawing, what he can do is back into the area that was added to this new site plan, several hearings ago. So then he would pull in there, back up, and then leave forward. So in essence, the truck can come in from Veldran. He can back up into the designated distribution area. Then you can pull out here, back, do like a K-turn, and then leave the site forward.
So we marked that A8. We're going to make it, just change that to A8A and 8B, since it looks like it's a two-page exhibit. And you're just trying to establish the different maneuvers of a 30-foot truck, correct?
Sure.
Yeah. Now, this assumes, of course, Bill, that all the parking spaces are occupied and the vehicle can still maneuver freely in that area.
Yes, I don't know if you can see it from where I'm standing, is that the travel line, the line of the truck's turning radius, which is actually the bumper.
Right.
There's no encroachment over to the parking spaces themselves.
Most of my experts will testify to that, and then their exhibit will show that they're actually crossing over parking spaces and such, but yours is clean. Okay.
So far, yeah.
Good. Okay. Now, you determined the pathway of where the deliveries would be on these exhibits. Was that in collaboration with the other team members, the other professionals, and the client, where the loading would be and the deliveries?
Yes, it is.
Could you just express in some detail how you came to that knowledge?
Well, I think one of the things I should be able to discuss to the board is I did do a comprehensive parking study, for this project. As we know, 85 parking spaces is what is required by code, taking into consideration with the EV parking spaces. We're providing 81 parking spaces on our site, so there's a deficiency of 4 parking spaces. So what I've done is that I spent time counting the parking spaces on the municipal lot. We really don't anticipate using the municipal lot, but the side just north of our site, the maximum number of cars I ever counted at that location was 15 out of 33 parking spaces. So if in the event there was ever a need for cars to park there, which again, I'm not saying that's going to happen because I feel, and I'll get into it as to why I don't feel that's going to be an issue.
Bill, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Chairman, I'm not sure, but I hope that the Page engineering report, the traffic study, was that supplied to the board? I believe it was. I just want to make sure.
It was in the original packet.
So it was dated, Bill, your report's dated June 14, 2024, but it was updated and revised February 11, 2025. Is that the latest?
That is correct.
And this was submitted to the board. We're going to mark this as A9. And this is your traffic report and summary?
Yes, the parking
Parking study, rather. Okay, go ahead with that, Bill.
Okay, the first thing that we looked at is the existing Bank of America building. That's a 9,025 square foot building. I believe there's 35 parking spaces that were available in their parking lot. What I want to do is make a comparison of the demand for parking and trips being generated by the bank, and the bank was in operation, and then compare to the number of parking spaces needed for this particular project.
Okay.
The project breakdown, again, based on RSIS for the residential use and ITE for the retail use. And there's had been discussion that for the retail use, you need 22 parking spaces. For the residential, which is based on 23 one-bedroom units, 13 two-bedroom units, and 2 three-bedroom units. That comes to 71.6 parking spaces based on RSIS. So the grand total of parking spaces required for this project comes out to 93.6. Rounding it off comes to 94 parking spaces.
And that was the testimony of the other witnesses?
Yes, it
94
was.
Parking spaces?
Yes. And then again, using the factor for having
EV charging stations.
charging stations, it comes to 85. So as you can see, too, is that 81, as the other applicant or the other professionals testified to, we have 81 parking spaces and 85 is what's required. So it's a deficiency of 4 parking spaces. So what I wanted to do is make a comparison of parking trends within the country. And I'm saying the country because when a parking study takes place, it doesn't just take place in Oradell, it takes place in other studies throughout the country. So one of the factors that get involved in the reduction of parking, if you do have a situation, and there's 4 factors. The first factor is household characteristics. Now that's a trend in vehicle ownership and need. And again, I'll go into that a little bit later. The second item for reduction of parking requirements is access to mass transit. And in this particular case, we have the railroad within several hundred feet walking distance from this building. And you also have a New Jersey Transit bus stop at the end of the park, which is even a shorter distance than going to the train station. Geographic location, and those are amenities close to the individual's home, which again we have this particular project being constructed within the central business district of Oradell. And then the other one is off-site parking availability, and that's a proximity to street parking and public parking lots. And I mentioned earlier the availability of the municipal lot right adjacent to this particular project itself. So again, what I want to break down is there are some of the trends that are going to affect, again, the parking. What I just labeled are the factors that you look at. Now, some of the trends that we have is this particular building is you have the professionals that are in the area for mass transit. We're feeling, whether it is or not, is that a lot of the people who may want to rent in this particular building are going to be taking mass transit, either the bus or the train to New York. So we feel that's an amenity, so then people may not want to have 2 cars for a 1-bedroom apartment. Maybe they'll have 1 car. But RSIS says for a 1-bedroom apartment, you have to use a factor of 1.8. And then rounding up, you're saying they're going to have 2 cars. You also have, I guess, changes in shopping needs. More people are actually staying home to do their shopping, whether it's Amazon, Target, or whatever. So again, they may not have the need for having multiple cars, because a lot of the shopping, or let's just say you have multiple cars, because one person will go one way, do something, another person will go do some shopping or whatever. So here they are staying home, and they're shopping from home. And then we have deliveries. And then I just showed you where the deliveries would be taking place. Another thing is COVID had changed the, let's say, demeanor of how people are parking and how many times you have cars. Again, that had affected, people working at home. So you may not want to have multiple cars again to go to work or shopping or whatever, because more people are staying at home to do what they have to do. Ride sharing using Uber has become a fan of people, young people especially, when they go eating, drinking, or whatever. And then the other item is basically cars. People just don't want to spend the money to have multiple cars. One of the main things you have here is that people can walk to Aura, the new restaurant we have here. There's barbershops, there's delis, there's a whole lot of different amenities that people can walk to. And now that Pascack Valley train line has become more and more active, people can take the train if they want to go to New York. They can go north to Suffern, to those areas, and they can shop there instead of driving. It's easier, especially now with all the traffic that we seem to be having with everything taking place around Oradell. And that has also impacted, Kindermack Road and Oradell Avenue. Well, the first study that we have in my outline is the U.S. Census, the 2013 census, and the 2024. And what that showed, again, is that the number of cars per family has substantially been reduced. At one time, people would have, again, multiple cars. Maybe I keep repeating myself on that, but it was normal for a two-family to have two cars, one for the husband, one for the wife, or partners, or whatever. But that now is changing dramatically. The need for multiple cars has been reduced. And in the report that the board members have, it shows a graph of how these numbers have changed over the years for the reduction of how many people want multiple cars. Another study that I found was the Strong Town study, and that was based on a couple of cities. And what their goal is to eliminate parking spaces entirely within the downtown areas. And what they wanted to do, maybe it doesn't affect this, Oradell, but the trend there was to have more pedestrian safety areas, eliminate cars. People will take mass transit to get to the city, and then they will walk. So again, the people that live within the city, within the central business district, don't have cars, or they just don't use their cars unless they want to leave the city for some other reason. Another study that I found was the Urban Land Institute did a study, and they looked at several cities, communities, and they actually saw that in some places there was a reduction of number of cars per unit by 25 to 30%, which again is a considerable factor. So if you took the 25 or 30% reduction in cars based on the ordinance of some of the communities, then that could be a reduction of at least 10, 15 cars in this particular case. So again, my whole point is that there's been a lot of studies and ride-sharing availability with, Uber and some of the other ride-sharing companies like Lyft. People don't need cars as much as they used to, especially the younger people. And the younger people, my assumption would be, is some of the people that would be moving into this building. Now, what I did is, for the parking, I wanted to see the availability of the parking spaces in the municipal lot. I counted 15 different times of the day during the weeks, and I also counted separately, again, the 33 parking spaces that are north of the building. And what I found there, again, is that the number of parking spaces occupied in that 33 spot area was very, very minimal.
So, Bill, you went out different dates, different times of the day to each of these three parking lots?
Yeah, during the week, morning, during the commuting periods, evening commuting periods, and Saturdays and Sundays.
And the west lot is the larger municipal lot?
That's the one in back of the post office.
How many parking spaces are in that lot?
It's at 154.
And your count showed anywhere from 50 to 74, 75 being occupied during these different random times?
Yeah. But again, most of the parking spaces are east of the post office. That whole area pretty much fills up completely, along with the 24 spaces on the east side of the railroad. So the whole point there is that the space, which is again adjacent to our building, is the spaces that are not occupied completely. And I did, when I did count, there was a couple of cars that seemed to be there every day. So they're probably people who work with the Shell station or something else. But the whole point there is there was always available parking spaces at that particular location. And then I went into trip generation. That was the next phase. How many trips to be generated by our project compared to the bank?
So why don't you explain what trip generation is in layman's terms?
Okay, ITE, which represents the Institute of Transportation Engineers, what they've done is they've compiled, as they call it, a Bible of trips being generated by different uses. And the uses are office buildings, for example, hospitals, Burger King, fast food restaurants, lumber yards, pretty much everything that you could think of.
Right, throughout the country, all different type of uses, and then they gather all the data and put it in a compendium.
That's right. And what they'll do is they'll have their factors, and the factors, then they'll come up with an average trip generation per use, and then that's what people who do traffic engineering will use. Then ideally, the thing would be is to take that data, compare it to something similar that's in the area where you're going to be doing a study, and then see how that correlates to what the Institute of Transportation Engineers developed.
And Bill, when you get that information and such, you focus on morning rush hour, evening rush hours, certain days of the week for what they call ingress, egress. Each vehicle in or out is two movements, right?
That's right. And they look at the peak period. The peak hour in the morning is from 7 to 9 a.m., and the peak hour in the evening, or the peak period, is 4 to 6. Saturday is like 12 to 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Sunday, it all depends on the area.
Right.
But like Mr. Lampy said, is that a peak hour is what you then, you count the traffic for the peak period. Then you take the 4 consecutive high numbers within a 15-minute increment, and you add them up, and then that becomes the peak hour. So the peak hour, what we counted, is in my chart. So since the bank isn't there anymore, we use the ITE for the trip generation for the bank based on the square footage of the bank itself. So what I've shown is Table A in the bank. Again, as Mr. Lampy said, it will show that, say, during the AM peak hour, it would be like, say, 156 trips. And now that is based on one car coming in and that same car going out. So the number of cars would be, in reality, could be half of that number. But a trip is what goes in and what comes out.
And so the bank, even though it doesn't exist, you use these studies
Yes,
to
I do.
extrapolate the volume of activity.
That's correct.
Which is usually higher than the combined residential that we're proposing, correct?
Yeah, because a bank or a commercial building, you're going to have people staying there for maybe 5-minute period. Just run in and make the deposit unless it's busy, maybe 10 minutes. And then with the drive-in, so you have the people who still park in the parking lot walk in to go to the counter, and then you have the drive-in people that are hopefully going to be faster than walking into the building. So the trips being generated by the bank are going to be a lot higher than the residential development.
Even though the residential development building is larger, the trip activity would be lower.
That is correct.
Okay.
And then, as say, the busiest time for the bank was actually a peak period in the afternoon. And the number that I got from ITE was like 123 ingress and 118 exiting, which is like 241 trips. Again, you take half of that number because it's one car in, the same car out. Now, for the retail use for this particular project, again, that was going to be generating per square foot more traffic than the residential use. So what I calculated there, again, based on ITE, is that you would have during the PM peak, which is comparable to the same peak as the bank, you'd have 21 trips. Saturday, you'll have 27 trips. Again, that's like 14 cars in, 13 cars out. Again, it could be the same car, or it could be an overlap where you have one that's still there when another one leaves. So the total trips for this particular project, I calculate as being the bulk would be 45 trips, and on a Saturday would be 49 trips. Again, that's also based on residential, as you're not going to get a lot of residential activity, you know, during the morning peak or the afternoon peak, because again, it's in comparison, you're just dealing with one household, you know, the number of households that we have. And the other assumption that we have here is that you do have mass transit. And I have noticed that they said that mass transit over the years now, in the last 20 years, has increased 9% over what it was 20 years ago. And I do notice, too, because, not to make it a comparison, as I pick up our grandkids in the morning before they go to school, and the big thing they always want to do is go down to the train station and watch the trains. So when we first started this a couple of years ago, there was not as many people as there are now. So the train usage here in Oradell, I would say, has doubled from what it was a couple of years ago. So you have the factor now that if this building is constructed, I'm sure there will be a number of residents that will take the train, because that's going to be a major amenity for them to want to be in that particular location.
So Bill, you were analyzing, making observations, counting numbers, and overall the activity of vehicles in and out of this proposed project as compared to the prior bank operation would be significantly less than at any given time, that is.
Yes, that is my, prediction.
Okay.
And I just want to mention, too, that Veldran Avenue, people may think it's a very busy street. And the only reason it's busy because people don't want to wait at the traffic light at Oradell and Kinderkamack Avenue. So what they do, if they're heading north on Kinderkamack, they will bypass the traffic light, make the right, go past the post office, and then make the right onto Kinderkamack. And that's also the same phenomenon that you have when people are heading south on Kinderkamack and they want to go north on or east on Oradell Avenue. North on Oradell Avenue. They'll make the left turn onto Veldran, go to the stop sign, and then hopefully they can make the left onto Oradell Avenue. But I found out that at times it's easier just to wait at the traffic light.
It's a little psychological, right?
It is. You think you're going to bypass the traffic, but you don't.
So you were reviewing the functionality of the parking garage, the turning templates, the capacity, and the activity of ingress-egress traffic. You were not doing full traffic studies along Kinderkamack Road. I imagine there's thousands of vehicles a day.
Well, I did a count on Veldran Avenue at the location where our entrance would be. And I took that traffic, and then I took the trips that we're generating from this particular project, going into the building and out of the building during the AM and PM periods.
Okay.
And the level of service I got was a level of service A. And based on ITE or traffic engineering, A is one of your best levels of service.
So levels of service is the time period a driver experiences waiting at an intersection for a break in order to go into the flow of traffic, correct?
That is correct.
And there's A, B, C, D, and E.
Right.
A being the premium, the best results.
Yeah, and it could even go to F, and F is basically forget about it. That's when you're going to be there through several traffic lights.
And so the the rating that you assessed from your studies was level of service A?
Yes.
On that street? Okay.
So what I'll do is I can read the conclusion.
Go ahead.
Okay. The 81 off-street parking spaces that will be available for this project will not be a detriment to the area. The deficiency to meet the Oradell parking requirements for this project is only 4 parking spaces, which is de minimis. Sufficient parking, as shown above in this report, for the multi-use development will be provided on site. Having the municipal commuter lot adjacent to the property provides a benefit to the site by having the opportunity to share the spaces. The municipal lot's parking spaces will be available during weekdays and weekends should the demand for additional parking be needed. Being close to both the New Jersey Transit rail station and the bus stops, the demand for individuals to have any access to New York City or areas south of Oradell will be a draw for young professionals to want to live in the proposed development. The available mass transit facilities and walking distance to several of Oradell's services are a catalyst for young professionals also, or renters, to rely on mass transit or continue the trend to own either one car or no vehicle at all. Oradell is also enhancing their CBD by providing additional amenities such as the Ora restaurant, a variety of mixed-use services, all within walking distance of the proposed project, plus having the benefit of mass transit and at the doorstep. These available services, parking, and downtown amenities will blend nicely with the proposed development, and it will not burden the area with insufficient parking and congestion. Having the municipal parking lot adjacent to the project provide a shared parking opportunity, if needed, for both the proposed project and the commuter lot. So I feel that this project will not be a detriment to the downtown area of Oradell.
And its location in the central business district is an appropriate location?
It is. It is. And the engineering and the architectural team has made quite a few modifications to the plan to address the concerns of the board members. So again, I feel that what is being proposed here is something that will work quite sufficiently.
Thank you, Bill. Chairman, that concludes Mr. Page's direct testimony.
Thank you. Dave, any questions?
Sure, a couple questions for you. So I guess started off, in your testimony you talked about the train usage. Did you do any actual counts, or was that just an observation?
It's just an observation.
It may not be doubled or whatever, but it definitely, there's been an increase.
Oh, there definitely has been
And
an increase.
what's the time frame that we're talking about?
Usually around 7:30.
I'm talking more sort of like years.
Oh, it was 2 years ago. This is when I first saw, when they started going down there.
Okay, so 23, so we should have been, it wasn't, 2020 or 2021 that we were talking about, where at that point, everything kind of came to a grinding halt, so.
Right.
It's once things started picking back up is when you started observing the difference in trend.
Yeah, there's a big change. I mean, at one time I worked in New York City, and we lived in New Milford, my wife and I, and when we take the train, the biggest problem was there was never enough trains on the Pascack Valley line. And now the Pascack Valley line has much better service, more trains, and I feel that during the commuting periods, the trains are about 15, 20 minutes apart, for that short brief period, whether it's the AM or the PM. And like I said, 2 years ago, we noticed that, let me just say that when we'd go down to watch the trains, there would be maybe 8, 10 people waiting to get on the train. And now it's like 20 or 30 people. And there are people that I do see coming down for the next train, which is another 15 minutes after that particular train.
Okay, fair enough. Now, as far as you had provided some testimony as far as the level of service, was that included in your report?
No, I made a separate report because at the point that I did that, they said, let's just stick with the parking.
Okay.
So I do have that if you would like a copy.
Okay, I think that would be beneficial to have that as part of the record. Now, so I guess your testimony essentially is that really the development that's being proposed here will not have an impact as far as Veldran, and it's because the use that's there today, which was a bank, has a higher traffic
Yeah, trip generation rate.
generation.
Correct.
Okay. All right, that's fine. Now, as far as the parking on site, so basically, your testimony is there's 4 deficient spots from what's required by the code.
That is correct.
I know there was comments regarding 2 of the spots inside the garage, one being concerned with the door. If that was to be eliminated, and we would have 5 deficient spots, do we still have sufficient parking on site?
Yes, it's funny that you brought that one up because I was just talking with the developer, when Mr. Vergona was there. But one of the things that they could do to eliminate that concern is to put a window at that entranceway. So the person inside the building could see if a car is backing out and not not go out into the parking lot. And it could also be that the person in the car could look through the window. I'm just saying, like a
glass panel.
Yeah, a big, good-sized window. So then that way, either person can see each other as a safety concern.
Okay. But I guess if they were to eliminate the spot, there's still sufficient parking there?
Yes.
Or if the window option was something that would work. Now, as far as the parking itself, will there be assigned parking to the residents there, or how's that going to work?
From what speaking with the developer, is that the lower level will be assigned for the residential. It may not be at this point. They're still debating whether to put what room number on a particular parking space, but there will be signage that the lower level is for residential use parking only.
Okay. That would be enforced, obviously, by management of the building.
Yes, yes.
But I guess, would there be a gate or anything separating it? Would you need...
No, they may have a sticker on it that you're a resident of this property.
Okay. That's fine. During your testimony, you talked about, truck loading and all that stuff, and the radius that was provided on the site plan. Is that required, that radius by the loading area, is that required to make the truck accommodate that space?
You mean that island?
Little radius that was in the...
I think it makes it more efficient.
Okay. So just make a note of that. I think there was a minor change on the... You reviewed it based on the former plan. I think on the revisions, that radius kind of got eliminated.
Yeah, I think it would be a good idea.
Okay. Now, as far as the trucks, I think there was testimony regarding the height clearance and stuff. Would the trucks have any issues with height clearance getting in and out of the property?
The front entrance is 12 feet high.
The typical box truck.
The lower level is much lower, and there are no trucks would be going down there.
Right. So the trucks would just be at the grade level?
Correct.
And there's sufficient height of the 12-foot to get them in and out?
Yes, and also for an ambulance as well.
Okay. And then the template you showed was a box truck. I think the testimony you gave was that would also, it's the similar size to a garbage truck?
Yes.
So they would have sufficient space to maneuver in and out as well?
Correct.
Okay. I think that was, those were the main questions I had.
Thank you. Caroline?
Thank you. Can we just go back to the parking assignments so that I'm clear? You said the lower level would be for residential, so that's 36 spaces on the ground floor?
No, the residential will also be on the upper level, but we also have to provide parking for the retail use. So the developer wants to just say that he doesn't want retail users to go down to the lower level. So that's the only reason we're just saying lower level is residential use only.
So okay.
I mean, they can park anywhere they want to, the residents. Eventually, again, this discussion is still there if we want to assign parking spaces to the residential.
So the lower level of 36 spaces is for residential only?
Only, no retail use.
Okay, and then will there be specific spaces solely for retail, or?
They're still working that factor.
Okay, so your tenants can park in any spaces that they would like to,
Yes.
in any available space. And retail, it's unclear if the retail will be limited, but at a minimum, they won't be allowed to the ground floor.
That's correct.
So if you were going to limit your retail, I would suggest that there's some type of signage or something would be needed. But it sounds like you're not, I guess the decision hasn't been made about that?
No, the decision hasn't been made.
Okay, I guess that should the board act favorably, and then there is, that decision at some point, the signage will need to be reviewed by Steve's office or the sign committee or something like that, right? Do you look at some type of labeling sign for the
They'd
retail
have to submit a
spaces?
plan.
They'd have to submit a full signage plan. Okay. When you looked at the adjacent or nearby municipal lots, assuming that was solely for daytime use by either retail or visitors to the residential areas?
It could very well be. Like what you're saying, let's just say if someone is going to the retail space, into the retail building, the logical place would be to take the municipal and just walk. It's a shorter distance. But we do have spaces within our project for the retail use, and then they can still access the retail area from our parking lot.
Okay. Also, I'm assuming the municipal lots don't allow the overnight parking. So if you live in the units and you want to park your car overnight,
You can park there.
you can park in the
Yes.
municipal lots overnight?
If you're an Oradell resident, yes.
Really? Okay. Or if someone, if there's visitor parking. Okay. But your testimony is that there was sufficient space in all of the nearby municipal lots when you visited, and you visited at different days of the week and different times. So,
Yeah, my testimony is that the space, the parking lot between our building and the Shell station, and that strip, where there's 33 spaces, there's more than enough parking spaces there, for especially on the weekend, weekdays, and even.
okay. So generally speaking, it's your testimony that while there is a deficiency in parking of 4 or maybe potentially 5, depending upon this issue with the door, there's sufficient parking, and there won't be any negative impact to the surrounding area or the neighborhood from a parking perspective.
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you. That's all the questions that I had.
Thank you. Steve?
They've been answered. Nothing.
No. Okay. Any members of the board have any questions for Mr. Page?
I have a couple. As our engineer, Mr. Atkinson, asked you, if you were to reduce the total spaces by 1 to eliminate that safety concern, you still feel that, what would we be down to, 83 at the, 83 spaces at that point?
80.
80.
You would be down to 80.
80, yep.
Do you have an idea of how many spaces you think the building needs?
I would say probably, if I had to give you a number, I would say it only needs about 75 spaces.
75. And would that would account solely for the tenants, or would that account as well for the retail?
Say both.
Both. Would that account for visitors?
Well, if we 75 is what I'm saying is that I would say would be the number, but most likely would be the demand. And if we do still have the 81 parking spaces, that accounts for some visitors. But again, my opinion would be that if a visitor comes to the site, they will probably go into the ground level parking area first. And if they don't find anything, then they will drive around to the municipal lot and then come on to Kinderkamack Road and then enter the building.
Okay, so just refresh me, how many units are proposed here?
38.
38. So for a 38-unit building, how many visitor spaces do you think would be reasonable?
RSIS has like some factors that they use, so I would say probably maybe 8, 10 spaces.
Now, Bill, that's built into the number, correct, that RSIS publishes?
Yes.
Yes.
I think so. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll invite anyone from the public that would like to come up and ask questions.
Fell asleep. Paul Assunis, 50 Beverly Road. Why would residents in the building want to use the municipal lot? What was the reason?
That's not an appropriate question.
Well,
But I don't think we can guess as to why people use it. The question, the testimony
Does that mean there's not enough spots? I mean, you know.
We're not going to argue with each other. Let me finish my comment.
All right, go ahead.
We're just saying the proximity and availability of the parking spaces and the lots are there. We can't, know what's in the minds of people, why they don't park there or why they park in the municipal lot. Probably because it's an easier and lesser walk, as Mr. Page just said.
A lesser walk to go to the municipal lot, or a lesser walk to stay at the building where they live?
I don't answer questions. That's
Which
not my
one?
role.
Well, you made the statement. I don't know.
That's right. I make statements.
You
I don't
clarify
answer.
it.
I don't answer questions.
You can't clarify your statement. Okay. When you use the banking trips for this, how many banking trips? What was your amount?
I know.
you mean the number of trips?
Yes.
During the Saturday peak, there was a total of 241. Again, like I say, you could take that by half because it could be one car going in and that same car going out of the site, which typically would be the case.
So it's half of that.
Yes.
Okay. So 120. Okay. When you called out how many cars per apartment, does that include the affordable units?
That includes everything.
Everybody. What did you count for the affordable units?
Well, again, the one bedroom, that would, whether it's affordable or non-affordable, would be the same. That's 1.8 cars per unit. For the two bedroom, that's 2 cars per unit. And for the 3 bedroom, it's 2.1 cars. Again, that's based on RSIS.
Okay. Okay, when they come to make deliveries, and a truck comes up to do that, what do you call that? The turn that you have.
At the K turn?
Yeah, yeah. What happens if you have like 2 trucks come at the same time? Amazon comes and then some other truck comes for UPS and another delivery. How are they going to maneuver?
Well, they can pass each other because it's 24 feet wide, and the truck per, again, AASHTO standards can't be more than 8.5 feet wide, being on a highway. So if you got 24 feet, that's what, 17 feet that they have, you know, for the total width within 24. So the one truck would have to wait for the other one to make his turn and leave.
But what about the turn, the K turn?
Well, they're not going to do that at the same time.
They can't do that.
No, they wouldn't.
Okay. Okay, did you do any study on the waiting time to make a right on from Veldren to Kinderkamack Road? Because when cars come down from Oradell Avenue, they're going to use that as you stated that they want to use Veldren so then they can make their right and get on Kinderkamack, right?
Right. I didn't count the time it would take, but I would probably take that route at least 8 times a week. So the good thing you have is the traffic light at Oradell and Kinderkamack Road. So that creates a sufficient gap for anybody that wants to make that right to go north on Kinderkamack Road. So the amount of time would be maybe 10 seconds, 30 seconds.
Did you consider maybe people would go through the commuter parking lot to go and to get onto Kinderkamack Road?
I don't know. I'm sure some people might, but I doubt it.
It's happening now. It's because of the crowding. Make sure. Well, the truck height clearance, you said was 12 feet.
Correct.
What type of trucks are allowed to go through that 12 feet?
I mean, those would be your standard box trucks.
That's
and
all.
they're less than 12 feet.
What about the moving vans? So if somebody's moving in with furniture and everything, people are going to come in to move in?
I guess they would have to find a place to park if it's more than 12 feet in height. You know, or you would have to tell the people that are moving in that they can only fit a box truck, you know, a moving van. You know, it's not going to be any tractor trailers in there, that's for sure.
Well, yeah, because somebody might come from the south somewhere, some other state. They got the whole load there, and they might want to park and unload. Where are they going to unload?
You know, that's an assumption that we don't have an answer for. So again, you know, the question is that if someone's moving there, they have to tell the moving company this is a restriction.
Would you say that Kinderkamack Road and Oradell Avenue is one of the busiest intersections of our area here in Oradell?
I think the way the trend has been, whether it's Oradell Avenue, whether it's New Milford Avenue, whether now it's the adjustment that they made in Emerson on Kinderkamack by the railroad tracks, I think this traffic pattern that we're seeing around here now is here, and Oradell Avenue and Kinderkamack is just another one of the product of this new trend in traffic, you know, within this area, Bergen County.
So, so are you telling me that this is not going to affect that type of busy intersection? Is not going to add to it? Is that what you're saying?
Again, the trips being generated by this project are, let's just say, a lot less than if you put retail back into this property. What I'm saying here is that being a residential project and with the amenities that it has, like the train station, the bus stop, I feel that you're not going to get the traffic generation that you could if you put another use here.
You mentioned a lot of studies before. Where did you get all those studies from? approved, or are they guaranteed, or what do they call them? Are they recognized by any agency, or?
Well, the one's the U.S. Census, so I'm sure that's been recognized by agencies. And then the ITE, again, the Institute of Trip Generation, Institute of Transportation Engineers, that's also a very well reputable entity. So I would say, yes, these studies are very well taken care of.
Oh, how will the drivers know how to bring the box trucks in? Are you going to have signs there to tell them where to go?
I'm sure in one of the things there's going to be a height limit on the entrance coming in so that the box truck driver will know that he can or can't go in there. And then one of the questions that was brought up earlier is signage. So there will be a sign that says deliveries, at this location.
Okay. The 8 spaces that you're allowing for visitors, is that from some kind of a statistic, or are you just saying that 8?
Being involved in traffic and parking and site plans and engineering and everything for years, that of the number of units we have here, I would say that would be a standard. Again, RSIS says that if you have so many parking spaces, you have to allocate so many visitors' parking spaces.
That's your estimate.
And as Mr. Atkinson said, the numbers that we have shown are also included as visitors parking.
So you're referencing Mr. Atkinson for the 8 spaces?
No, he's giving me availability in saying that.
Okay, we have a problem at the train station when the train comes and the arms go down. Did you observe that people can't go through Oradell Avenue, or they can't come up to? They can't come across because of the train station when there's a train in there. What did you find out about how traffic will affect that area because of that at the time?
Say that's traffic that's outside the realm of this project. Because again, that's something that would have to be taken up with the railroad and also with that state or the Bergen County Traffic, division. Again, my premise from the beginning is that we're not going to be generating a lot of traffic with this project. So by the train coming in and stopping, yes, the residents from here are going to be walking across the intersection to get into the train cars. Mm-hmm. So that is a completely different problem than what we're creating or doing here.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
John Callani's question, some have been answered, but on the deliveries for the truck, you said there will be signage?
Yes.
And it will, is it a far walk when they come into Veldren to get to the retail on Kinderkamak?
I believe the architect, or maybe the engineer too, is that where the delivery designated spot is, then there's a walkway from there, and then it go through the back corridor to the back of the retail area.
Okay.
And so that would be actually, that's a shorter distance than if they had to go out to Veldren and come around to the front of the buildings. So they would make all the deliveries inside the structure.
So your testimony is that the delivery setup that you have will be more advantageous and timely than pulling on Kinderkamak? And
yes.
It is? Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Deborah Lynch, 456 Kindercamack Road. I really would like just to clear up the 15 of the 33 spots that you saw, the 15 cars in that north parking lot. The majority of those cars are from my building, where we're only allowed one spot in our building, so that is overflow parking for our residents there. That's what that is. I just wanted to clear that up. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else from the public that would like to ask a question?
Hello, Maureen Day, 457 Demarest Avenue. Maybe a few things we could go through would be great, and appreciate your testimony. Thanks for joining us. First, maybe on the parking. So the way I understand it, your position is you don't think that the property will even utilize the 85 spots that are required?
That is correct.
And what's the basis of that?
The different studies that I presented to the board tonight, and also by having access and availability to mass transit, the train station and the bus stop, which is an awful lot of developments that you see taking place, they don't have that amenity. And as you see the trend, like you see in Ridgewood and Park Ridge and a lot of other places, Hackensack, is these apartment buildings are being built along mass transit corridors. And this is what we're doing here. So the idea is we will have a lot of people living in these buildings that will be taking mass transit and not driving cars in and out of wherever they're going.
So the studies that you're utilizing, were they based on this particular area? Or I think I heard you say that they were nationally based.
They're national based. And again, what is happening in, say, Hackensack or other cities around this area, Ridgewood, even though it's not a
Would you say Oradell is like Hackensack? I would not.
No, I'm not. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying the studies were based on studies throughout the country.
So, again, living in Oradell for many years, I would say in most households, there's at least one car per driver. So I'm just thinking about my little neighborhood. We have 5 cars for 4 drivers. Our neighbors have 3 cars for 2 drivers. And most other people have 1 car per driver. And then additionally, people have visitors, right? We have retail. So is it possible that we could have more than, a need for more than 85 spaces?
I don't see that being the case, but again, as I mentioned, is if that does happen, you do have the municipal lot next door, which again, you don't have that amenity in probably most of the towns around here.
Right. So I also commute by bus. So I, use the lot behind the old Panico building. Mm-hmm. I use the lot next door to the property that we're talking about. And, with all due respect, they're pretty full. I would say most of the time during peak hours. And that's also, I think we have to consider the fact that right now we have a fair amount of retail that's vacant. So hopefully, those vacant stores will be occupied, and that will take up some of, whatever excess parking might currently be there. Did you guys contemplate that?
We contemplated it, and I know the parking lot that you're talking about in back of the library, that lower level and probably half of the upper level does get pretty busy. And that's either people that I noticed walk to the train station or take the bus like you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Or you also have people that go to the library, and you also have a lot of people that park there to drop their kids off and pick them up from school. Mm-hmm. The lot, again, down by the post office is strictly more so a commuter lot. And that's what I found out, in the study that we did. And I keep reiterating that the area north of our project is the only area that really has a lot of vacant parking spaces, which I believe you didn't say that you try to park there. I understand you take the bus, so you.
I take the bus, and then I also take the train, and the people who take the train use that lot, so I'm in that lot as well.
Take the easterly portion of that lot mainly.
A lot of times, because there isn't space, I do have to park over there. Right? And again, the parking is going to, and the need for parking is going to vary, right? Even after COVID, I would say most people, if they commute into the city, it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So if you're there on a Monday or a Friday, there's certainly more availability than in the middle of the week.
Yeah, I did notice that too, depending on the day of the week. When we counted that day several times, you did get a little bit more busy than other times.
Yep. So maybe we could talk about traffic, which personally I think is probably one of the main issues that the board will have to get their kind of arms around with respect to this development. So, and I think I heard you say that you don't think that this development, which is, right, 30 apartments plus retail, is going to have a detrimental impact on the traffic. One of the last folks asked the question, do you think that intersection, Kinderkamak and Oradell Avenue, is one of the busiest intersections in our town? I don't think I heard an answer.
I said that one is a busy intersection, and so isn't the intersection on Milford Avenue and Kinderkamak Road, which is in Oradell.
Mm-hmm.
And you still have Ridgewood Avenue and Kinderkamak Road. That's not as busy because you don't have as much activity coming east-west on Ridgewood Avenue. The biggest problem we have is that Oradell Avenue is probably the only major connector from Paramus, 17, Parkway, to the Boulevard or Grant.
Exactly.
And that's where the big problem is. And then Kinderkamak is the only north-south corridor other than Forest Avenue to go from River Edge,
Exactly.
Emerson. So whether this project goes or not, it's not going to do anything different to that location because the bulk of the traffic is not traffic in from Oradell. It's bypass traffic.
So I think we all agree that the traffic in that area or people I think who live here would agree with me, the traffic in that area during rush hour is not good.
It's not good.
And, we can get to safety, some safety concerns also in a second. But to say that a development of this size with this many, even if we're just talking about 85 parking, the need for 85 parking spaces and 85 cars, that is not going to impact the traffic in that area. I don't understand that.
Because not all 85 cars are going to be leaving at the same time. Again,
not at the same time, but I think what you said, the building is going to draw people, young professionals, right? People who are going to work, right? They're going to be, have kids, whatever. They're going to be leaving and coming at I would say many of the same times.
You want me to interrupt?
Excuse me, Miss. Would you mind just asking questions?
Yes.
Based on the testimony?
Yes. So
and you can, after the meeting, when this is over, this application, or today's meeting is over, we'll open it up to public, and you can make commentary.
Yep. So again, you don't think there's going to be any negative impact from this development?
No, I do not. And like I said, is that if something else goes in there, like a more retail use or more generated traffic than this one, that one would be something to be more detrimental to the area than what we're proposing here.
Have you looked into your studies? Have you looked into any pedestrian safety concerns in that area? So for example, particularly during commuting hours, right, there's a lot of foot traffic across Oradell Avenue to get over to the train station, which would be right by this property. And because it's already very heavily trafficked, adding more traffic to that area, do you think that's going to impact foot traffic safety.
I think you're going to have people walking from this building along the sidewalk and then crossing or Oradell Avenue to get to the train station. But then that's where the gates come down, and one of the other gentlemen said, that's backing up traffic on Oradell Avenue. So the question is, I don't think it's going to be a safety concern for the residents from this building, not any more than what you have now, people getting to the bus station, by the park, or people crossing Kinderkamack Road or Oradell Avenue to go down to the Central Business District.
All right, thank you. That's all I have.
I just had a quick clarification. When you said just now about your analysis, you seem to say the project and then compare it to a retail use. But I'm assuming that your analysis, since the project is both retail and residential, that the analysis incorporates both as a mixed use. Is that correct?
That has a very small retail component, where if somebody else is going to go there, it would be a much bigger store or more retail uses. So based on that, you would have a much higher traffic generation. Even if you put an office building there, it would still generate more traffic than at this residential.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I guess we'll continue on with, you have one more witness?
My last witness, which is the planning consultant.
Yes, thank you for asking.
Break. 5-minute break. Restroom break.
What? No, they're going to take this. That means they won't vote on this, right? Yeah. I don't argue with the people, because then that just stretches out the thing and gets nasty.
Aesthetics along the
That's
front.
important.
You guys ready? We're gonna begin.
All right, Chairman, sorry. Yeah, stand. You gotta be sworn. Swear him in, Brian.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm any testimony given this matter to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Just state your name and spell your last name, please.
Yes, can you all hear me?
Yep.
All right, Charles Height, last name is spelled Heydt.
Charles, give us the benefit of your educational and professional background.
Yes, be happy to. So I do have a master's in city and regional planning from New Jersey. I was licensed in 2012 and have been practicing as a professional planner in the state since then. I also am a member of the American Institute of Certified Planners. That's the ongoing credit maintenance, and that's a national-wide certification.
So you're not one of these planners that just paid the $150 fee to get the licensing?
Like Bill or Rob? No.
Like Rob, right?
Yeah, no.
You went to school
I'm a
for it to
planner,
be an urban planner, right?
Correct.
Thank you.
Do you want to put any more qualifications on the record, or the board will
That's it.
accept him as an expert?
Thank you. Charles, let's bring us through the issue. The planning discussion. This is in the business commercial zone, this property, correct?
Central Business District, yes.
And the uses that we have applied for, the mixed use, are permitted in the zone?
Correct.
So we're really looking at the impact of the project, size, scale, traffic, as concerns of the public, et cetera. Those are the things that we're focusing on from a planning perspective, correct?
Yeah, from my perspective, with respect to the zoning, we actually comply with much of the use and bulk requirements. What I'll detail for the board tonight are really 4 out of the overall applicable zoning requirements. So I'll jump into it. I know it's 10 o'clock, and I will try and do my best. If I do speak too quickly, just let me know.
I will.
I'm speaking to the court reporter.
Oh. When did I lose control?
With respect to the first variance, maximum building height, we did look at this closely. There is topographical change along the site's frontages. So the CBD district permits 35 feet. Based on the calculations of the borough for building height, we are proposing 38.4 feet. So again, it's 3.4 feet in excess of what's permitted. In my opinion, I think this could meet the C1 test in terms of the topographical grade change. That's a very unique condition affecting this property, but in also with respect to multiple frontages. So that topographic change mainly occurs along Veldran, but we do have 2 frontages that add to the overall calculation of building height. Secondly, from an urban design standpoint, while we need the relief on the building height and feet measurement, we are still proposing a 3-story building. That's what's permitted in the zone. Along Kinderkamak, that's what you will see. Really, you only see a little bit of a lower portion of the building along Veldran that has the tallest portions of the facade. Those are some of the points with respect to supporting the positive criteria for the building height. The next variance that we're seeking relief on is maximum building coverage. We went back and forth in terms of what would be an appropriate building coverage, given that we also do still comply with maximum lot coverage. But again, for the board, what's permitted is 40%. What is being proposed is 49.7%. And I know there was some calculations that were updated with respect to impervious coverage, but Mr. Costa, I think, will revise them. At the end of the day, the impervious coverage on the site still complies, which is an important factor with respect to stormwater management. We also are proposing an adequate stormwater management system, which does affect the overall building coverage and other impervious space areas on the site. And lastly, I think the most important thing in terms of regulating the mass of this structure is that we comply with all the yard setbacks. So the front, the 15-foot requirement, sides, and the rear. So while this is a corner lot and we have an L-shaped building, that in my opinion does create a little bit more of the coverage of the building, I still do think we respect the zoning that's applying to this site in terms of regulating the overall mass of the building. The third variance being sought tonight is with respect to the minimum number of parking spaces. 85 spaces required, 81 proposed. At the board's discretion, if one of the spaces that presented some safety issues was removed, and that was a proposal of 80 spaces. I do concur with all of the evidence that was presented by Mr. Page before this board. We've had extensive conversations internally as a project team. I've sat and listened to all the witnesses provide testimony, as well as Mr. Page's testimony tonight. I agree with respect to the location of this site, having access to mass transit, the train station, as well as bus stops, will help reduce the automobile ownership for future residences. And I think that's really what's at heart of the issue in terms of the appropriate balance of parking. It's a different lifestyle than what you would find in a single-family home, where you might have more of an increased or higher automobile ownership. So all the census data, all the studies that are looking at current trends do show a lower parking automobile ownership in a downtown near mass transit in those scenarios. So I do think what's being proposed is an adequate number of parking spaces, and we also do comply with the EV make-ready spaces as well. Lastly, one other, a little bit of a site plan related requirement. There's to be a minimum number of parking spaces in a row. So we are proposing 15 parking spaces in a row without a break for any sort of vegetation or tree, where the minimum requirement is 10. So this occurs on the eastern stretch of parking. Again, I think with Mr. Costa's testimony and Mr. Vergona's testimony, locating the structure of the building, how that balances with where the available parking in the area, that was the proposal. Obviously, again, if you wanted to introduce one tree or landscaping area, you would be removing a parking space. So I think the design of the parking areas is sufficient in terms of function, and I don't think there's any sort of lack of aesthetics with the building. Much of that is being put into the two facades along Kinderkamak and Belgrand, where you have obviously the aesthetics of the building, but the streetscape improvements that we referenced earlier that will work with the board's professionals to have integrated into the project.
Now, Charles, this project also provides for an affordable housing component. Isn't that a very important feature?
That's a very important feature. It's actually a requirement. So we did do a review of the CBD's affordable housing requirements. The short answer is it's our intent and requirement to comply with all of those requirements. One of the aspects that I think the board planner had asked at a previous meeting, maybe it was the last meeting, were just an explanation of how we would comply. So again, I'll run through this relatively quickly. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer. In terms of affordable income units, affordable units, you have to meet certain bedroom distributions. So no more than 20% can be one bedrooms, no fewer than 20% can be three bedrooms. That accounts of a total of 40%, and then the remainder, usually 6%, is two bedrooms. We comply with that bedroom breakdown. With respect to income limits, and this will be information that will be submitted to your affordable housing coordinator or their appropriate title, the board attorney possibly, when the time is right that we're calculating rents. But with respect to the moderate, low, and very low rents, a maximum of 50% of the affordable units can be at moderate. A minimum of those units can be set at low income units, and of the low, 13% have to be set at very low. Those terms, moderate, low, and very low, all reference area median income, and that goes through a calculation. we can provide that information to the board, but usually at this point in time, we can say that we would comply. When we go through that rent analysis, that information will be submitted to the municipality.
And you'll assist the developer with complying with these detailed criteria and the supporting data so that the income levels will be achieved, correct?
We've discussed it internally. We're very early on calculating future rents and all that, but we have discussed it, and the applicant's aware of the requirements.
And you've had experience dealing with the municipal administrator or the housing coordinator. I don't know what Oradell has, but they may use Frank Piazza or somebody like
Yes,
that, right?
These income limits are set for an annual basis for the region, Bergen and Passaic, and the New Jersey Affordable Housing Professionals. It's a state organization that publishes the income limits. So they do get updated annually. When the time is right, we'll reference the appropriate income limits.
Now, the occupancy of the building, given the square footage of the units, the number of bedrooms, et cetera, have you had an opportunity to make observations regarding
We did.
that?
This question came up, I think, from maybe a little bit of a confusion or just general inquiry. Mr. Vergona's architecture plans, based on building code and number of occupants that are safely accommodated in a structure, was calculated to be 166 people. So that's if all rooms were filled with the maximum number by building code, fire code for safety. That's the number you get.
That's just the spatial dimensions of the rooms, correct?
Based off square footage, correct. So similar to Mr. Page's analysis with traffic, planners use a Rutgers study called Who Lives in New Jersey. It has statistical multipliers calculated based on census data. This study was updated in 2016. It provides a breakdown not only of all units, but in this case, newer units. So the data I referenced in terms of calculating what would be the projected number of people living here is based off of a apartment building of 5 to 49 units, which is where we would fall into, a rental unit. And I went through this calculation of multipliers, again, based off of bedroom mix, the bedroom distribution. So 0 and 1 have a certain multiplier, 2 bedrooms have a slightly larger multiplier, and 3 bedrooms have the greatest multiplier. These numbers are not to be taken for exact. I'm not trying to estimate the bullseye of how many people will live here. What I like to do is provide the board a range, which is actually how the data is presented. So we have a mean of an estimated 76 total people being living in this proposed structure, and that has a range of 63 on the low side and upwards of 89 on the high side. It's all statistic driven based off census data, but that 89 is clearly lower than the 166. So I think that's an important thing to just make sure the board's aware that there will be a lot less people.
And this analysis is based on studies from the Institute at Rutgers?
This is the study that I reference whenever population questions come up. Yes.
Have you participated in some of those seminars and studies that support these groups?
Yeah. Professor Lissigan was one of my professors, and we actually, this was years ago, but on a project in River Edge, we collaborated and presented some data for that. So I'm happy to say that it had been updated in 2016, and it's pretty strong data.
Now, following that analysis, that would have an impact on the capacity of the parking facilities associated with this project, correct?
Yes, but I would say the parking, while it has a little bit to do with total number of people, it really is about the trends in vehicular ownership, which are just different for this type of housing topology.
Right. Anything else you want to add, Charles?
Those were the two main aspects with respect to some of the negative criteria, any impact to the general welfare. I do understand we've made and addressed a lot of the impacts with respect to site circulation, a lot of the questions about the parking and loading that have come up. We also looked at, hang on one moment. We also looked at how the massing of the building respects the overall intent of the zoning requirements. I mentioned this a little bit ago, but I think that's an important factor when you're considering some of the relief we need, where, in my opinion, when you add on the 3 layers, the 3 stories being proposed, it's not a substantial impairment of the zoning ordinance or the master plan. With respect to the master plan, we're implementing all of the requirements of the CBD district in terms of affordable housing, total number of units, amount of retail, in an appropriate fashion. So while we have 4 variants requested, I think we're meeting the intent of the CBD district.
And the 2 variances as to building height and the building coverage, that has to be in context with qualifying and meeting the goals of this master plan for this district, correct?
Correct. I think, as a planner, we design certain requirements, and they're idealistic. It would be in a perfect world. I mentioned some of the uniqueness of the site, meaning it's a corner property, so it has 2 facades that we're dealing with, and there is substantial topography along Belgrand. So, to me, I think it's reasonable to make the request for those variances to be granted, and it's justified under the statutes. I did also want to mention, these are all bulk variances. They're not use variances. So in terms of special reasons that I found, I think this application does further purpose A of the land use law. That's to guide appropriate development in the borough for the general welfare. So again, we have a proposed use that's consistent with the zoning. Purpose E, to an establishment of appropriate population densities. We are in the downtown area of the borough. We're near, essentially at the footsteps of mass transit, and I do think that this is an establishment of appropriate population. It's an appropriate location for the proposed use and the number of residences that will be here. Purpose G, to provide sufficient space for appropriate locations for a variety of uses. Again, it's a mixed-use building in a mixed-use setting, and that's an appropriate location for the proposed use. And lastly, to promote desirable visual environment through creative design techniques. It's a pleasure to work with this design team, but we do have the benefit of an architect that has tremendous experience designing mixed-use buildings. What you're seeing today is one of the preeminent designs, mixing in different elements to work in a nice storefront along Kinderkamak, other elements to break up the linear frontage of this building. So I do think it does add to the character of this portion of the borough. So those would be additional special reasons. I think that's my direct testimony. I know it's late, so I tried to be quick about it.
No, I think you highlighted the important features. Lastly, you don't see any substantial negative impact or substantial detriment to the zone code or to the zoning area with this presentation, do you?
No. I did look at the master plan. I do think we actually advanced several of the goals to maintain and enhance areas of stability, to encourage proper distribution of land uses. That's goal 1. I think we're actually implementing that. We're not at a detriment or adverse to that. To provide for a variety of residential housing types and densities and a balanced housing supply in appropriate locations to serve the borough and the region. That's goal 3. I mean, this is directly aimed at actually furthering that goal. So I don't think we're in an impairment of the master plan or the zoning ordinance, notwithstanding the minor relief we need.
Thank you. Chairman, that concludes the direct testimony of our planning consultant.
Thank you. Caroline?
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Just quickly, are you requesting the lighting variance? I don't want to be a stickler. I just want to make sure that we're covering everything.
Thank you very much. So as I followed that conversation, I think the proposed lighting would average greater than what would be permitted. So we're dealing with lighting averages here, and that's along the streetscape. As I heard it, it can be controlled, and that is quite often the case with lighting these days with the LED lights and the controls on them. If the board were to grant this, I think an appropriate consideration would be that they wouldn't be set at a light higher than what would be comfortable or reasonable. But I do think with that control, it's reasonable to grant the request for the lighting, and it can be set in an appropriate amount to provide sufficient lighting along Kinderkamak and Beldran. That would be what I would offer to the board, just with that ability to control the lighting.
And the applicant has agreed to a 6-month review if there are any issues with the lighting.
Great. Yeah. So in other words, if it's too bright, it could be toned down.
Yes.
Thanks. Okay. Just touching on the affordable housing, you gave some testimony about calculating rents and having discussions with the borough's administrative agent. Just to be clear, should this board act favorably, the developer is going to have to contract with an administrative agent who is going to do rent, vet the tenants, market the units.
Research, right.
Is that you, or is that going to be another entity?
I don't have the answer to that at this time. So it can be me. That decision might be someone else, but
Okay.
the applicant would have to do that, yes.
Okay, so you do perform also the AA.
We want to give
services.
Charles the work.
No, I wasn't aware. I just want to make sure that it's clear that there's going to be an administrative agent who's going to fully market and market the units properly,
right.
vet the tenants, et cetera, so that that's a requirement, and it's a requirement that the developer provide that and not the borough from a cost perspective.
Right.
That the developer is financially responsible for that.
We do the advertising and the promotion.
Right, and I just want to make sure that doesn't get lost, because I know that you have to market the affordable units 120 days prior to CO, so I don't want there to be anything get lost, and then you have to, then there's an issue with the CO, so, because I've seen
Gentleman
that.
sitting in the third row.
Just letting you know and making sure the record is clear that these things need it. Should the board act favorably, these are things that are the responsibility of the developer.
We accept
so that it's done.
We accept those responsibilities.
Okay. With regard to the income distribution that you discussed, the income, the various three level, the moderate income, and there'll be, I guess, one very low income. But the moderate and the low, those will be distributed throughout the bedroom distribution as well. In other words, it won't just be the one, it'll be 1, 2, and 3 that'll have varying income distributions.
Correct, yes. So my initial estimate would be one of the one bedrooms would be very low, 2 of the 2 bedrooms would be low, 1 of the 2 bedrooms would be moderate, and the 2 bedrooms would be moderate. But that's
2, 3 bedrooms.
2, 3 bedrooms would be moderate.
So what would be the very low?
The one bedroom. But again, that's my first assessment, and we can have that clarified if you'd like to clarify that now.
I think I'd like to clarify that I don't think that the 1 bedroom should be the very low income unit.
Okay.
That would be up to the AA, the administrative agent, but I find that would be a highly unusual situation, and I don't believe that would be my recommendation were I to make one. As the borough planner, that the 1 bedroom be the very low income unit. So
we'll change that to a 2.
I think that's a good idea. And just to further clarify, you indicated that within the CBD overlay where the property is located, affordable housing is required. To further make sure that the record is clear, this overlay was contained within the borough's housing element and fair share plan of 2018, referenced in the amendment that was done that I prepared in 2022. And it's also emanates from the initial settlement agreement with the borough and the Fair Share Housing Center that the CBD overlay is an unmet need mechanism, providing recognizing the unmet need requirement from round 2 and round 3 combined. So I just want to make sure that's clear with the record itself, that it's not that, yes, it's required within the zone, of course, but there's a long line of requirements with affordable housing relative to this overlay.
There's a history to it.
There's a history. I just want to make sure that's all clear too. Do you agree with all of that?
Yes, here with me, and I think it probably is helpful for the board as well.
Okay. Calculating the right distribution. I think that is it. I think that's it. I mean, you touched on the master plan and the purposes of zoning and, et cetera, with respect to the bulk variances. And although this board has only heard this application for 2 nights, I've been with it since the zoning board as well. And I think a lot of the revisions that were made that resulted in the change to this board were very positive from a planning perspective. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
That's it for me. Thank you.
Dave?
I have no further questions.
Steve?
Nothing.
Members of the board? Any questions?
I have a question. Did you get a chance to look at, I would imagine you did, the retail space and the parking in the back, lower level parking? Did you digest all of that?
Yes.
Do you think that's conducive to a successful retail space? That layout?
Well, it is to balance the requirement for minimum number of parking, but I think what's conducive is the at-grade retail along Kinderkmack. I think the parking in the area will have a generation of a lot more pedestrians, making multi-stop points to these different retail locations, as well as the people in the building making that foot traffic from their units to below. So I think that's more of a driving factor for me in terms of the success of the retail than the parking configuration. But I do think it's still conducive and it works.
It does. The numbers show that it works, but in terms of foot traffic or parking convenience, do you feel that this is the best layout to optimize the convenience for the retail space?
I do. I think it's a design that, again, balances the necessary parking by the ordinance standards, as well as what would be accessible for the retail spaces versus that lower level that's residential only. So I do think it does have enough balance between the two.
Oh, that's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
No other questions from members of the board? And I'll open it up to the public if you have any questions pertaining to the testimony that's been given.
Letsunis, 50 Beverly Road. When you planned for this, what kind of businesses did you consider would take place there? Did you plan for any specific type of businesses?
At this point in time, there's no specific tenant for the commercial space, for the retail
Right.
spaces, but we're not requesting any use variance with those spaces. So any future tenant would comply with the appropriate mix of uses that are permitted for the CBD.
On the rents, for the regular apartments that you have there, what type of rent, do you have any idea of what it's going to rent for? Because we have a lot of vacancies in town in apartments too right now. So I just wanted to know.
I can't speak to the vacancies. We didn't do any sort of study on other other apartment buildings. And we are actually very early, so I don't have any sort of assessment on what the market rate rents would be. We just provided some information based on the affordable requirements, but that's really all I had to offer with respect to the rents based on income limits for the affordable units.
Well, surely you must have been known as to what amount of money you need to make this project work.
As the planner, I'm not involved in the financial aspect of it, and I think that's how the land use law is structured, that we're not providing this board with any financial rationale.
Okay. Do you know who's involved with it?
The applicant.
Okay. We should ask him. On the population, what did you state would be the population amount?
Based on
You said
that,
86 or something?
So I gave a range of 63 to 89 with an average estimate of 76 total people.
Okay. Did you consider population of children at all?
That hasn't come up, so I didn't run through those numbers, but generally speaking, this type of housing, the apartment building, does generate fewer number of school-age children than a one single-family home. But that's just a generalization. But we didn't run through those school-age children multipliers.
No idea at all, because it's important for our our school.
I don't want to give an estimate, but in my experience, when I do these numbers, most people don't believe me because the amount is lower, and that's just what it is. These are a different lifestyle, and that's really, I think, what would be appropriate to say at this time.
Did you have any idea of what kind of income level a tenant would have to live there at all?
Not for the market rate. We did provide some early assessment on the affordable income limits.
Which is, any monetary figure can you give me?
So we're basing income limits between, and again, this data is provided from the New Jersey Affordable Housing Professionals for 2024, has income limits for a one bedroom at $27,000, for a two bedroom, a split between $54,000 and $86,000, for a three bedroom, $100,000. And those are rough numbers. There's $100,000, $183 is the actual number. I'm just approximating $100,000.
And it also varies by size of household, right? The way that's number of, yes.
Correct. Bedroom units are equated to number of persons within a household.
Right. So it's a range.
Okay. Did you consider the aesthetics of the town as a contrast with your building, or does it mold into our town? How did you plan for that?
Well, I can definitively say Mr. Vergona certainly did consider the aesthetics of the town. He's familiar with the borough, and I do agree that what's being proposed is a nice transition to some of the references of the historical buildings in town along Kinderkamak, but for a new proposed mixed-use building, it's an appropriate design.
Thank you.
Any other member of the public would want to ask questions? So I'll close it to the public. Thank you.
Sam Tripsas, 327 Maple Avenue.
Please spell your last name.
Tripsas. I have a copy of the master plan here. You mentioned that it meets certain goals and objectives. There's one in particular, about congestion. Did you testify that the location of the building is in probably the most congested section of the town? That's an east-west corridor with the train and all that, and you're testifying that it wouldn't be a detriment?
So the goals, and I'm assuming you're referring to the land use element 2018.
Yes,
master
yes.
plan? Okay. So applications don't have to meet every single goal, but in my opinion, there are goals that we're actually furthering. So from my standpoint, we're actually implementing the master plan and we're not impairing it. The CBD district actually was born out of the master plan, and that's good planning. That's policy being set, being implemented in the zoning ordinance, and an application is being made under that updated zoning. With respect to congestion, I'd reiterate everything that Mr. Page offered to this board. That congestion is at a peak hour, and it's very likely that future residents of this building will likely rely on mass transit to make their work trips or work from home. There's other scenarios. We are accommodating a few bedroom mixes that have an office. That's a growing trend. So for those reasons, I think the design of the building, the location of it, and where it is in the borough actually will, while it certainly does increase number of trips, it's doing more to offset long-term congestion issues.
How many residents do you think this is going to? There's 39 apartments, I believe, correct? How many residents do you think are going to actually live there?
So we did cover that earlier, and I think it's 38 units. The occupancy that was calculated was 166, but the future projection of residences is, again, it's an estimate of 63 on the low end, 89 on the high, and then an average of 76.
70. Right now, no one lives there, so that's a lot of people going from zero. I mean, even when the bank was there, it was a low density. People came in there to use the ATM. Maybe people didn't go to the bank much. So that's a lot of people to add to that intersection. Do you disagree with that, or population-wise?
As a professional planner, I would respectfully disagree. I think this is the most appropriate location to add people because of the nature of it being in the central business district.
Yeah, I've heard that before. All right, well, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to ask questions? With that, I'll close public comment for this witness. Mr. Chairman, I, for one, am not ready to make a motion because I think we discussed a lot of items today, and I think there's some consideration that needs to be, for which we need to give some time and consideration. So I don't know how my fellow board members feel, but I would like to pause this and carry it over until next month and have the applicant come back and provide a summary based upon everything that was discussed tonight to see if there are any new thinking or decisions coming out of it, and then we'll give the board an opportunity to ask questions once we've had some time to ponder all of our notes and information tonight. And then, of course, we'll give the public the opportunity at the end to make any comments based upon the project itself.
Yeah, I agree. So I would like to see, you've made a lot of comments tonight, a lot of great testimony. So Mr. Oradell is right. To understand all those, if you could list them out, like, for instance, complying with a signage plan that would be approved by the building department, right? Dealing with that safety issue in the stairwell landing in the garage. Complying with the income levels on the affordable housing, complying with the lighting requirements, all those things. If you could list those all out, and then come back and and share those with us. And I think we can finish this up at the next meeting.
Well, Chairman, we're going to order a transcript that helps everybody to review the testimony, and will help Mr. Giblin when time comes to pull this all together. So we'll definitely do that. We've made notes of those 4 issues in particular: the exit landing with that 1 parking space issue, and the others. The income levels, I think, are a matter of law under the regulations, so we're going to comply.
And those are the ones I jotted down, but I think there were many others.
And it's a long a long record.
Yeah.
So we're going to provide it. It's late. Everybody needs to digest the testimony. The public still has the opportunity to address the board en banc. So we'll be prepared. We're not going to reintroduce the same testimony or new testimony. We'll just report.
Just summarize.
And summarize. And we'll be prepared, as the board is. We appreciate all your courtesy.
Thank you.
Mr. Lampe, just before you go, does the applicant agree to the continuance to the next meeting without seeking a default approval?
We do. I don't know how long this has been pending since it was deemed complete, but Brian, we're going to put on the record that we're going to extend. Your next meeting is June when?
3rd.
June 3rd. We're going to extend the time for the board to review it beyond that date. We'll give you a 60-day extension from tonight. Things happen, such as I'm going to Italy. I'll be here. So, things like that happen. But we'll give you 60 days.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Carnaval, we'll move on.
Yes, sir.
Okay, business, buildings, and signage. Mr. Kang.
Yes, Chairman. There was an application from North Jersey Friendship House. They proposed a couple of new signages. The location is 496 Kindercamac Road. Mr. Derry and I approved the designs on April 14th.
Thank you, Mr.
Good night,
Kang.
everyone.
Good night.
Good night. Regional Planning and Coordination. Mayor Coe.
Thank you, Chairman. Just briefly, the Affordable Housing Committee I had appointed, consisting of members of the governing body, the planning board, and some of the borough's professionals, have been meeting with Caroline to work on our fair share housing plan to bring back to the board. I'm sure Mr. Darien will be speaking a little bit about our re-examination efforts as those are undergoing progress. So we're moving in the right direction, but the board does have some busy days ahead of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. The zoning, I have no report. Master Plan, Open Space, Environmental and Circulation Systems, Mr. Darien.
Yes, the Master Plan Subcommittee is still working through the draft of the 2025 Master Plan re-examination. I'm actually looking for some availability this week to the subcommittee members. Hopefully Friday, maybe we can talk after the meeting to, solidify a time. The reason is that the clock is ticking on the affordable housing component, and we want to make sure that, in general, both the affordable and housing plan and the master plan are on the same page. So we are working with that committee as quickly as possible, and right now we're trying to solidify a few things from the planning board subcommittee before we meet with the affordable housing subcommittee. So our goal is to meet this week. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Darien. Historical Preservation, Mr. Cornwell.
Nothing to report other than I hope everybody starts to enjoy the pictures that the Historical Committee has been displaying throughout Borough Hall of the borough's rich history.
I'll have to take a look at that. Thank you. No old business? New business?
The soil moving, was that presented to the mayor and council, or did they submit any recommendation?
No, I think we voted on it at our last planning board meeting, but I don't think anything's been formally submitted to the
Yeah, we
mayor
don't
and
have a
council yet.
resolution.
Mr. Depian, you have till 8:30 Thursday morning to make the next agenda.
Excuse me?
You have until 8:30 Monday morning to get on the next agenda, or you're going to have to wait till 2 weeks after that. Just letting you know the
Well,
timeline.
is someone going to make a resolution?
Did we do that?
I thought we did that at the last meeting.
Well, we voted on making a recommendation to mayor and council, but we never wrote up a resolution, Brian.
Something
On
should
that.
be presented.
No one was ever asked to write up a resolution.
Mr. Giblin, would you write up a resolution on the planning board recommending revising the soil moving to the mayor and council?
Thank you.
Do you have a copy of the old one, Steve, or should I look for that to provide Mr.
Why don't we
Gilling?
both look for it?
Okay.
Thank you.
New business financial disclosure statements.
You're late.
I'm done. I did mine.
Everybody did it? Did everybody submit their copies? I know that we've received.
I got you a copy of it. I didn't do it.
You didn't do it.
So they were
You
due the
also didn't do
30th.
the cybersecurity training.
I have an email access issue.
I think they just sent another email out.
Yeah,
Okay.
Just trying to get that done. We're late.
I gotta get the access. For some reason, I'm not able to access it.
Okay,
Hard copies available?
No.
any other new business? Then I'll move to open to the public.
Can I get up and talk about the planning stuff that was just...
Sure.
About what?
The application?
The application you cannot talk about.
Oh, I
No.
just, okay.
Only when the applicant's here and they're putting on the application.
All right, I'm going to see no one and close public comment and ask for a motion.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
But we're having a blast. Whispers in the alleys as we stroll down the line. Wrapped up in our stories, living on borrowed time.